like DCP, APB, and SPS, right? So the alphabet soup is Department of City Planning, Housing Preservation and Development, Small Business Services. Introduce yourself and take it away.
Great, thank you so much, Sharon, and to the rest of the committee. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
You're still going to want to project even in this room.
How is this?
Very good.
A little better? Okay. All right, perfect. I think I've introduced myself to everyone, but just to be absolutely sure, my name is Jonah Rogoff. I'm the team leader in the Department of City Planning.
I'm Jordan Fraud. I'm a senior borough planner at the Department of City Planning.
And I'm Sari Platkin, the Director of Neighborhood Planning at the Department of Housing Preservation and Development.
Hi, my name is Tanya Martinez. I'm the Assistant Director of the Intergovernmental Affairs team at the Department of Small Business Services. Nice to meet you all.
And we have a few more colleagues in the back from both HPD and DCP as well.
So my only admonition to y'all, did you sign in? All right, go ahead,
Great.
guys.
Okay, great.
And then goes to you guys after you sign in.
All right, so we were really happy to present on November 21st, and there were a few follow-up questions, and we wanted to just take a few minutes today to provide a few updates. But primarily we're here to listen, answer questions. We wanted to share a few updates on the recently passed City of Yes for Housing Opportunity. But more importantly, there were a lot of questions about capital planning, what types of non-zoning recommendations can be made. And so we wanted to just spend a little time on that, how it ties back to the outreach that we did over the past 2 years. And then recently adopted plans like in Gowanus or Bronx Metro North, just so you have all the right information and you feel the best equipped to make recommendations. Oh yeah, thanks, sure. So really quickly, we just want to remind everybody that aamup is a neighborhood plan, so that means that we're not just looking at zoning, land use, and urban design, but we're also looking at a holistic plan that includes transportation, streets, open space, quality of life issues, schools, services. So we want to make sure that you feel comfortable to include everything that you feel is important for accommodating growth or addressing the issues affecting that area. And then with respect to how we implement a neighborhood plan, we just want to remind everybody that the rezoning, or what we call the land use actions, are at the heart of the proposal. But at the same time, we're working towards other types of program-based or infrastructure improvements that get codified at the end of the process. So the recommendations that you provide us are incredibly valuable in guiding not just the administration, meaning us, the mayor's office, city hall, and so forth, but also the council members team as well. And then just to hit that home a little more, many of you may be familiar with the private applications on Atlantic Avenue recently that came before the board. What makes aamup unique, and also unique from the 2013 Crown Heights West rezoning, which didn't include investments, is that aamup is including will be including a host of investments, and then also efforts to ensure that agencies are coordinating with each other, both before, during, and after the plan is adopted. And then I think many of you are familiar, but we did quite a bit of outreach back in 2023 that included 3 larger community planning workshops, 9 working group meetings, and some of you were members of the steering committee, which was selected by Crystal Hudson as a dedicated group that really shaped some of the recommendations. And then we just want to spend really quickly just reminding everybody of the top priorities that we heard, because when we presented before Thanksgiving. We didn't really go into depth in that, and we just wanted to give a little more color to that. We also brought copies of the report and the specific priorities, if that's helpful for the board. So we just wanted to share that. Yeah, so just diving into it, I think I mentioned this last time, but we heard loud and clear that a top priority is accommodating growth, but doing it in a way that ensures that we're maximizing the potential for creating affordable housing, but also preserving affordable housing in the surrounding area, that we're not exacerbating or worsening the situation that many tenants are facing. And then with respect to streets and open space, we heard that top priority is having a coordinated street plan that was really centered around a comprehensive redesign of Atlantic Avenue that can make the streets safer, especially for pedestrians that are crossing, but also do it in a thoughtful way that takes into account the needs of trucks, drivers, bicyclists, and all road users. And then a need for creating open space, but also looking at existing parks for improvements as well. And then lastly, I think this is something that we've heard not just from aamup, but going back many years for M-Crown, that we're not just, this isn't just a housing plan, but we're doing our best effort to create opportunities for jobs and access to jobs for local residents. So there are different ways of doing that. We can talk through that more, but we just want to highlight in the report there was a strong interest in pathways for helping those without a bachelor's degree, and especially Black and minority-owned businesses. And then also looking at the Bedford Atlantic Armory as this large city facility that serves an important function for a homeless shelter, but also has the potential for space to be better utilized for like job training and other types of benefits for the community. Okay, so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jordan to talk about capital planning.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good to see you again. Thank you for coming out. We got a bunch of questions 2 weeks ago when we last presented about the city's capital planning process and how that fits into the broader goals of a neighborhood plan. So the capital projects are a really important component, and they're important because they allow communities to direct certain types of public investment in their neighborhoods, especially physical infrastructure. So on the right-hand side here, you can see sort of the three of the more general broad goals of the neighborhood planning process. Anything related to physical infrastructure, streetscape, public realm, all of that is what the capital planning process is designed to improve and address. So this is a very high-level diagram of what the neighborhood planning process looks like from beginning to end. Starting at the very beginning, which at this point was more than 2 years ago. So since 2022, we've been working with, really since 2013 when M-Crown kicked off, but in this particular process since 2022, we've been working with a lot of people in this community to understand the existing conditions of the neighborhood, identify issues and opportunities, and gather feedback on the types of physical investments that people feel are necessary in this neighborhood right now. And all of that work has been done as part of an integrated process, right? So we draft proposed changes to the land use and zoning. We have been developing strategies for housing preservation and tenant protection. We have studied the expected environmental impacts of all of the proposed changes on this neighborhood. And in addition to that, we have been talking to everyone, like I said, about the sorts of physical investments that people feel would benefit this neighborhood. So we're currently about here. We're in the refine and finalize stage of the process right now. We'll continue to refine and finalize our list of capital projects for several more months as aamup moves through ULURP. ULURP is the Uniform Land Use Review Process, which is the city's standard public review process for land use changes. That's what we're in right now. It's a 7-month process. And we have through the end of that process to refine and finalize the list of capital projects that will accompany these proposed zoning and land use changes. Capital projects, like I said before, that usually means changes to physical infrastructure. And so they generally fall into 5 categories for a neighborhood scaled plan. Parks and open spaces, pedestrian safety and comfort, transportation network improvements, infrastructure, and climate and ecological resilience. 2 topics that we've heard a lot about in this neighborhood in particular are a lack of parks and open space and the dangerous conditions on Atlantic Avenue for all road users, from pedestrians to drivers to freight to cyclists. Both of these issues can be addressed through the neighborhood planning process, as well as other infrastructure issues and the neighborhood's desire to improve its resilience in the face of climate change. We've heard a lot in particular about flooding, and that's another thing that can be addressed through the capital planning process. This slide shows the steps of developing capital project ideas over the length of the neighborhood plan. The diagram 2 slides ago was the entire neighborhood planning process. This in particular is how we handle capital projects. In 2022 and 2023 and the early part of this year, we were in the organize and learn and create stages, which are largely discussion-based, right? Talking to community stakeholders, convening working groups to figure out, again, what are the issues that people consistently feel are important to address in terms of physical infrastructure. And as we reach the end of the ULURP process, we're in the refine and finalize stage. We take lessons from the outreach that's been done over the last 2 years. We determine what the community has asked us to prioritize, figure out how much we think those things will cost, and then we work together with other city agencies to align the ideas with the city's capital budget. One key resource that we use to do this is the Community Vision and Priorities Report that Jonah already talked about a little bit, and that was released last year. That has dozens of recommendations from this community board and other working groups that were convened, and it gives us a blueprint to move forward with specific projects. So we've got copies of this to hand around, but for example, if you look at the Community Vision and Priorities Report, some of the top priorities from a working group that was convened specifically for infrastructure issues was transform Atlantic Avenue into a safe and welcoming corridor, improve park access, invest in existing parks, and plan for new park access. Improve bicycle travel safety and connectivity, maintain streets regularly to promote cleanliness, including a proposed waste containerization program for trash. So this document really is the blueprint for the ideas that this community came up with. And now this stage of the process is basically where we take a bunch of these ideas and try to convert them into actual funded physical investments. This is a brief recap of the major feedback that we've heard so far during this planning process. Residents of this neighborhood feel a really strong need for improvements to Atlantic Avenue, improved and expanded open space, more street trees, and better infrastructure for buses, pedestrians, bikes, and all road users throughout the study area. After this community board finalizes its recommendations for the capital projects that you would like to accompany the zoning changes, and you adopt a resolution on aamup, the projects that you ask to prioritize will guide Councilmember Hudson, City Hall, and the other key decision makers on this plan. A set of commitments from the city will be written into the final plan, and you as community members have the opportunity to track the city's progress on fulfilling these promises and holding us accountable using the New York City Neighborhood Rezoning Commitments Tracker. There's a QR code, so if you have your phone and you want to test it out, you can use the QR code that we've got here. I'm just going to do a quick demo. But basically, this is an interactive tool that we have.
Are you connected to the network?
Are we?
We're tethered to one of our phones.
So hotspot.
But is your phone connected to the network? There's not much network in here for 5G.
So I have the Wi-Fi password.
Yeah, you might want to just go to Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay. We will take that.
The secret
We're able
sauce.
to.
It's very simple.
We'll tell you, but then we're gonna have to kill you.
Okay, kids.
No hate.
No murderers.
Yeah, it's loading.
It's cold, right? I think it's gonna be hot again.
I could also double check that. This lowercase.
Maybe you just wanna move on.
Oh, wait, I know we got it.
Now you got it.
All right. So this is basically how communities are able to track the city's progress on fulfilling the capital projects that go along with each neighborhood plan. So just to give you an example, let's go to Gowanus, right, which is a rezoning passed in 2021. One example is, I'm gonna go to number 23 here. Renovate the Pacific Street Library. Click on it.
It's good. I'm glad they're doing that.
Yeah, it will open up, it should open up a little, dialogue box.
Should go into the Gowanus
But
project.
if it doesn't,
How did that get into the
there's
Gowanus?
this sidebar on the left-hand side where you can,
No, but Pacific Street goes down that far?
so you can basically go through the promised commitments one by one and read up on each one. You can see the public agency that's involved, you can see the timeline, you can see a explanation or a description of what the actual physical improvement is going to be. And then you can again zoom out and see on the entire neighborhood level what that looks like. More recently, Bronx Metro North did something similar. So, we'll zoom in here on number 19. Bronx Metro North is the most recently passed neighborhood plan. East Tremont Avenue improvements. Upgrade East Tremont Avenue for a safer and more pedestrian-friendly environment. You can zoom in.
Are there timelines for these projects?
Yes.
So,
And who calls them on it? In other words, if they're falling short?
So can we talk a little bit about that later? Because it's part of what we're going to discuss tonight.
So like, here's an example of timeline, right? Construction starts 2029, right? So the tracker should have a timeline associated with each project or each action. So once aamup, or if aamup is adopted, it would receive its own tab here on this neighborhood tracker, and you could basically see all of the proposed capital improvements in one place and go through them one by one to track the city's progress. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Sarit, who is going to talk about some of the.
Yeah, so happy to be back with you all today. We have some updates on some of the commitments, both for tenants and homeowners, that we started discussing last time. Really appreciated all the feedback we got. And we do have some exciting things to share. Oh, thanks. Yeah, so we do have some exciting things to share. I think starting with tenants, we'll talk a little bit about the Partners in Preservation Program. You've all heard about this program quite a bit. And for those who are not familiar, quick reminder, this is a program that supports tenant organizing and education, and really funds community-based organizations to really do that work, essentially really support and build tenant leaders in this community. $3 million have been committed to Central Brooklyn for the next 3 years. What we want to share tonight is that, this program is going to be starting soon, and we now have the contractors involved ready to announce. So the prime contractor is going to be Flatbush Development Corporation, and they'll be working with a handful of subcontractors that you see listed here. Want to call out a few that have been working specifically as part of the aamup process. So Impact in this area has also been a part of the steering committee of this process and really involved in kind of like the entire community visioning plan. So definitely wanted to highlight that. And yeah, just, you know, emphasize that I think this program overall is an important tool to kind of help us get closer to preserving existing affordable housing, specifically in rent-regulated buildings and buildings that are all at risk of losing affordability in other ways, and kind of supporting tenants that are at risk of harassment and a range of other concerns. So if we go to the next slide, want to also give an update on kind of legal services, since this was something that came up quite a bit during our last conversation. You know, so one of the concerns that was shared last time was that while Partners in Preservation, you know, supports tenant organizing, it's not providing additional funding for legal services. So want to, you know, that program's not supposed to be a panacea. We do have other ways to kind of like build up those needs, and so since we met last time, the anti-harassment and tenant protection program specifically, which really supports folks who are experiencing landlord harassment, at risk of eviction, facing displacement. That program, which has been underfunded chronically, has now been fully funded at $7.6 million, and that's come out of the City of Yes commitments. So we're really excited about that. Wanted to share that, and then kind of beyond that, just a couple of other little updates. More on the outreach and education side, HPD has a new kind of tenant education or tenant rights class that's specifically focused on educating folks about their rights. That's something that is now new and available, and we'll be able to do that in the aamup area a couple of times in early 2025, and we'll work on getting that scheduled.
Wait, Sylvia, before you go to the next slide, 7.6 million over what period of time?
Over the coming years.
Over how many years?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
I don't
10.
have that number right now, I can let you know. I know that's definitely for fiscal year 2025, but I'll figure out how much beyond that it goes.
And is it
So that would be starting in July.
Is it going to add to the number of lawyers? Is that the idea? Or is it
No.
just?
To pay up the bills
That
that the
is-
city is in arrears.
I can get you more information on exactly what
Not
it's gonna go
hospitals,
towards.
that,
Yep.
you know.
Yes, so I know we're gonna come back.
Yeah, are we coming back to this, or are we having the discussion now? Let me know.
No, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, next slide. So then, yeah, I think the last update that wanted to share, also related to City of Yes commitments, is that kind of moving on to homeowners. You know, I know we talked quite a bit last time about the homeowner help desk program, which is a one-stop shop for homeowners that are facing displacement, providing them financial, legal support and housing support. We also have the Home Fix program, which is specifically for homeowners that are in need of repairs, that might be facing arrears. And that program recently, through the City of Yes, has more than doubled its funding commitment. So those are low interest loans for homeowners up to $60,000 in need of repairs. So wanted to just also share that we think that's definitely a win for homeowners as well. So now the kind of number of homeowners is gonna more than double that could be served through that. And that's it.
Great. Yeah, so we would turn over to you, Sharon. I'll just say that we're really here to listen, answer questions, you know, and yeah, we'll make ourselves available. We also have more info about the report, and then if you need detailed information about the zoning or what we present to the CPC, we can also.
So, yes, you may. Are you saying anything, or are you going to answer questions? Okay, so then we're gonna move in, as we discussed before, that would give us an update or refresher on what was the beginning of all of this, which was end-round. And then the next phase of that will be our discussion. There were a number of items that were circulated for discussion.
Thank you.
me, can I have one real quick?
Let's go back to our Let's just go back to our
Oh, you have it already?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
All right. Good evening, everybody. As Sharon mentioned, my name is Jim Piccone, for those of you who don't know me. And before we talk about the aamup plan itself, I just want everyone to take a second and realize that you are here tonight at a meeting of the Land Use Committee of Community Board 8, where you're going to be voting on feedback on the aamup rezoning, which is the successor to the M-Crown rezoning, which this committee began working on in 2013, which means it's been going on for 11 years. And as I look around the room, a number of you have been here for all 11 years, and you've been to a lot of meetings, and there's been a lot of discussion about this. But actually, we're going to talk about something tonight that will be implemented with the feedback we put together being considered, and this is really kind of a big deal. So I personally never thought we'd get to this spot. We were awfully close 5 years ago in 2020 when COVID came and everything kind of went down the drain for a little while, but now we're here to talk about it. So what I have done is put together a few slides that enumerate some conditions that we're going to discuss and which the board's conditional approval or disapproval of the rezoning will be based upon. These were circulated by email earlier, and I want to thank Mimi and Rob, who provided some feedback on these conditions, and I hope that I have incorporated it into the slides that I'm going to show you tonight. You can tell me if I've missed something. The points themselves generally fall into a couple of categories. In one instance, I've tried to sort of align the proposed zoning in aamup with the community board's last M-Crown resolution, which was in September 2019. I have also tried to incorporate some items that came up in the November 21st discussion with the Department of City Planning. And I have also, as I mentioned, incorporated some items that were brought up by Mimi and Rob in email earlier today. And one or two things that you haven't, I think maybe one thing that you haven't seen before, but I think is maybe worth some consideration. So thank you all for being here tonight. Even, our friends from DCP, Alex and Jonah, have kind of been here for the whole 11 years as well. This is kind of a big deal. It's like a birthday party or something, I don't know. But let's get on and talk a little bit about some possible feedback on the aamup rezoning. And I'm going to go through these one by one, and then we can, I think I have 13 altogether, and we can have some discussion after each one as mentioned by the chair. Okay, so the first one of these goes to actually something that was shown towards the end of DCP's last presentation. This is kind of a general condition, and it goes to the idea of tracking the commitments that become part of the non-zoning benefits. You saw that Jordan demonstrated the commitments tracker. That's great, but that on its own is probably not enough to give us confidence that everything will get done the way we want it to see implemented. In Gowanus, the community actually went out for outside funding and put together a board that monitors these commitments and follows up if they're not getting done. That was something that was discussed at the November 21st meeting. It's something that has a lot of, I think, merit in our circumstance as well. So one of the conditions that is proposed is that the city shall fund a consultant to act as a facilitator of a community body formed to oversee the city's delivery of benefits committed as part of the aamup neighborhood rezoning. Funding shall be for 10 years of the date of approval of the ULURP application. Members of the body shall be nominated by city council members and community boards whose districts overlap the aamup study area. So this is an independent board that will be funded by the city and which will be composed of folks from the community who can maintain oversight over these public commitments. So at that point, I'll just ask if there are any questions or comments about this as a condition. Rob?
So in Gowanus, the city didn't fund the board, it was funded by.
They actually got a private grant from the Ford Foundation, I believe, but I don't think we want to try to hang something like this on us receiving private funding. I think at the last November 21st meeting, Andrew Wright from Councilmember Hudson's office mentioned that the council member was pursuing this with the administration. So hopefully, this will help support that effort. Linda?
What's the funding for?
So it's not really enough just to have community members show up and sit in a room and try to do this. You really want someone who's paid to keep track of everything and facilitate it.
So it's payroll.
It's staff, basically. It's a consultant, not a full-time person, but probably part of a consultant who will manage the list of open items and then status them with the community.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't it seem like a part-time job for a longer time?
For more than 10 years?
Yeah.
I mean, it can be renewed, but I suspect that if we have commitments that aren't going to get started within 10 years, I think we might want to check ourselves a little bit. Anything else? Yes, in the back.
Who would be overseeing this board? I mean, let's say there would be a group of people who didn't agree with what the board was okay.
Well,
so do you have to do an Article 78 against this board? They're not elected.
So here's the thing, the community board is a set of volunteers. The community board will not be able to participate in such a thing per se. They may have representatives. So the other participant, and when you see the community board participating in any phase of this, for example, when we sign agreements on various issues, it's not community board 8 because we are a city entity created by the city charter. Therefore, no Article 78 can be brought against us, but we participate as members of Friends of Community Board 8, which is the 501c3 that was established maybe 10, 12 years ago, so that we would not be able to, we wouldn't have to write off our participation or our ability to make comments about such things. So the way that looks like, if you do not know how Friends of Community Board 8 is comprised of, who the officers are, the officers of Friends of Community Board 8 are comprised of the executive committee, meaning the elected officers of the community board. So you have some continuity in terms that you tend to have long-term memory and historical memory within that conversation, and also that board has the ability to appoint someone else from the board. So for example, our Friends of Community Board 8, the chair of the Housing and Land Use Committee or whatever entity would be overseeing this in the future, that person would likely be a designee.
Yeah.
And also, when you have the Gowanus, if you use the Gowanus as an analogous, you have community members representing other entities. One of the things that I really like about the Gowanus is that it did not just focus on the particular people that were going to be affected, but it was more so for persons that was to include the wider community. So for example, you didn't just see the change for the Gowanus, but you saw the community's desire to make sure that there was improvements in the public housing communities that were there. So I'm just giving information now. We can do a deep dive in a little bit.
We're discussing this
wait,
now.
Hold on one second. Give, you're doing this one item and then we're going to discuss it? Okay.
I think that's what
Okay.
we wanted to do.
So let's go. So Princess, please help me out. I think it might be good for you to sit over there, but right now I see the hands as Kathy, Peter Crashes, and Sarah, and Mimi. Okay, so in that order, you guys please organize yourselves, okay? Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay, just to be clear, this is a board, this is a group of people that are holding the project accountable for the already established list of projects. This group is not
Correct.
doing anything on its own.
They don't
Okay.
create new
Right,
work
because
or
this
cancel
goes way
anything.
back to our discussions 5 or 6 years ago about having 2 or 3 people from the community, the Friends of Community Board 8 in a room negotiating with developers. This is not like that.
That's not
Right,
what this does.
I understand, but the way Sharon made it sound, maybe not intentionally,
No.
was this is not a board that has oversight over deciding projects. These projects are decided ahead of time, and this is an accountability board.
That's
right?
correct.
Thank
The
you.
role of the facilitator is to produce public reports that say, here's what
Yeah.
we're finding, here's what we
So-
need to hit up.
Nothing new.
Go ahead.
So what that enables, Kathy, is that if we're seeing things not progressing as how we envisioned it when we're doing this vote, hey, you guys, we promised $7.6 million for legal services. You've only given $250,000 towards that over the entirety of a 1, 2, 3 period.
Yeah.
Where's the money coming from? This was the agreement that we made.
So,
Once again,
Peter?
I wanted to go back to
Peter?
this woman here who hasn't had her question answered. I'm sorry, the initial question.
I'm sorry, so that person, I'm sorry, you're not in my viewpoint, maybe I have
Yeah.
to sit up front. Sorry.
That
It's
was,
sort of,
this
it's
was
sort of.
the original person
Julie,
who
you're the person that asked the question.
who was asking the question. Yeah, sorry. So she just wanted to once again reiterate. I'm sorry.
Julia's, Kathy, Mimi, let Julia speak for herself, she's really
Well,
great
she
at
actually
this.
asked me to do it, but go ahead. Yeah, she asked me to do it, but.
Okay, so I don't understand your answer.
Go ahead.
Okay, I understand what Kim is saying is that this is a group of people who are gonna come from, I'm just trying to reiterate so that I think I understand. It's a group of people who are gonna be coming from, they're gonna be appointed by the council people, and then they are going to be able to look at the project to say, this project is going forward in an appropriate way or not. Is that what this council, this board is gonna be doing?
So the board is not going to be doing that, it will create an oversight entity, so, for example, you have, what's the official name for Gowanus?
It's like the Gowanus Community Stakeholder Council or something, Oversight Task Force, Gowanus Community Oversight Task Force. So think about it like that, it really is an independent way to provide transparency into how well the city is doing fulfilling the commitments. It's not about changing them or.
But my concern is, you say the word independent and then you say that it's gonna be funded by the city. That's not how I do business.
Well, it is independent in that the city is going to provide funding for a facilitator. The facilitator, we could add this in there, but in the case of Gowanus, they chose their own facilitator. This group would be the same. It would choose a facilitator. It wouldn't be someone from the city who would come in and control it.
Excuse me, I'm really not trying to prolong this, but if you gave me the answer at one time, we could stop. Is the person who's the facilitator is gonna be paid by the city to watch over the city?
Julia, what happens is that the city provides funds to the entity. That's part of the contract. So for example, the city, you will fund and it's not to be named yet, the aamup Community Oversight Task Force, X dollars to provide a person that does that. Then you have a Friends of group or part of the coalition. My vision, and this is something that we can discuss, it will include community people, stakeholders, and representatives from the community board vis-a-vis the Friends of Community Board 8 structure.
So can I go, because I had my
But
hand up.
if I could just say one more thing to Julia's question, the city has no ability to fire or control the facilitator that's hired to run this. It's not like they can stop paying them if they don't like the feedback they get.
And that's when you sue. And that's when you sue.
So.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, that's the city isn't. It's the person isn't on the city payroll taking reporting to a city employee. It's just paid for as a community benefit as the function of this rezoning. It's just like if the city is going to pay, the city is going to fund all sorts of other community benefits. This is just one of them.
Julia, is your question answered, or do you still have more?
I'm done here.
Okay, Peter?
So, I mean, I'm coming at this from I guess for over many years I've looked a lot at oversight issues relative to athletic yards and been very frustrated. And I've also, on the other hand, been in a lot of community board meetings, even not a member of the community board, but I've attended many, many community board meetings. I've never heard the Friends of CB8 describe the way you just described it, Sharon. And actually, I've never seen a report from the Friends of CB8, and I've never been to a public meeting of the Friends of CB8. So I do have some concerns about how, I think that if you break it apart into a couple of things, one, transparency, so that means, public meetings. Accountability goes to what Julia was describing, which is an appropriate structure for the accountability board, which has some transparency in terms of who's appointed to it. And in fact, maybe even has a defined way that people get appointed to it. You might even break it apart into different committees of Community Board 8, having a representative or something, but then I would think the council member you need the elected officials who have more potency to be on that board too. And you want, in terms of the enforceability, you need to have some kind of you need to have some kind of agreement with the city which they can be beholden to or held to. So, I mean, I'm not an expert, I'm not a lawyer, I'm Board 8 described the way you described it, and I've never witnessed any output of Friends of Community Board 8. I'm not a member of the community board, but I've never seen as a member of the public who pays attention any output from Friends of CB8. I didn't know they had a role on policy. I thought they were actually fundraising to get consultants and stuff. I mean, I had no notion that it was, and so I think if there is an advisory role, then I would definitely want to hear more about that on, perhaps every committee should have reports on a monthly basis.
I want to say it's possible that we're overthinking this at this point, and the reason I say that is because as a non-zoning benefit of this application, this actually will be negotiated by the city council member. The city council member is going to have a lot more input into how this type of body is structured, how people are appointed, than we will. So with all due respect to what Sharon's comments about the Friends of Community Board 8, this is actually really going to be determined by the city council member more than us sitting in this room right now, and it kind of has to be.
So then maybe what we might, as a committee, want to look at is giving advice to the council member about what our focus in terms of oversight might be, which would be transparency, accountability, and representation. And
I certainly understand your concerns, vis-a-vis Atlantic Yards and vis-a-vis this project. Remember, part of the fact that it's not transparent is that they took out the possibility of the community having any say by moving this project from ULIP to ESDC, which is much less community friendly.
But I guess my point is that attorneys can figure this out. I totally agree with Gibb that the council member is going to sort this out. But if we just set some kind of clear goals we don't need to say how it's done, but I think we can say this is what we want to see in it.
And especially at this juncture, I would agree with that. Thank you.
Okay, can I say something?
But before we have a lot of these to go through.
Can I say, can we please keep our comments very short? Thank you.
Yeah, what I would like to say, Peter, in response to what you just said, I mean, we can certainly add to this that, we can add the line to provide transparency and accountability. I mean, beyond that, again, we're in kind of the good offices of the city council member to be able to structure this. But I don't see us going into that much more detail because, again, this is mostly going to be worked out by the city council member.
Sarah, go ahead.
All right, keeping it short. Tenants are the people who are most likely to be impacted by this rezoning. There should be a priority on tenant representation on this oversight board.
Thank you. Who's next? Who had their hand? Mimi?
I'm sorry?
No.
Linda.
No, Linda's had her hand up the whole time.
Pardon?
No, but Mimi was before me.
No, my hand was only up for.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, for Julia.
Go ahead.
Oh.
Yeah,
Very quickly, 10 years of funding for payroll for a group of people. Do you have any idea what kind of,
Not structured, nothing.
what do you mean
It's
nothing?
It's conceptual. Here's something that we need. We need to make sure that we have an oversight board, okay? I think, the details will be primarily negotiated by the city council person as well as the selection. But it's important for us, this is a non-zoning benefit, that we have an organization by which if we do something, if we agree to something, we have a means, a mechanism for accountability. Unfortunately, for example, with Atlantic Yards, another group that was formed completely outside of the community board, right, if Brooklyn Speaks, which actually sued the state because they weren't complying with the affordability promises. And this is the same measure that you'll see in another issue. Hold on, everything will tie together. Everything will tie together. All right, can we go to the next? You're making any additions to it?
He's actually doing it on the fly.
Yeah, I am, because I want us to be able to actually complete this exercise. 1 second. Okay, to oversee the benefits committee as part of the aamup neighborhood.
This has to be done before next weekend tonight.
Let me tell you, we will not be able to do this on every one of these, but at least we'll get a start on this.
$8 million.
I'm gonna say to
Do we want to spend $8
provide.
million to pay people to do the
But
city
you're only
council's
paying one
job?
person.
And-
It's a group of people.
Yeah, but those are volunteers, I would assume, so you're only paying
It's a
the
group of people.
and
The facilitator's the only
accountability.
person being paid, the other people I would assume would be.
Okay, so
I
now,
wouldn't assume
if there,
anything.
if I can ask, unless there's something material, maybe we can talk about, maybe somebody would like to make a motion with respect to
Wait, hold on
adopting.
1 second. Brianna?
I just had a question about the consensus. Could you talk about how they identify it, how they selected and all that?
It would likely be through an RFP.
Because the city can do it.
Correct, it would have to be a publicly circulated RFP.
Can you read what you changed there?
I said, the city shall fund a consultant to act as facilitator of a community body formed to oversee the city's delivery of benefits committed as part of the aamup neighborhood rezoning to provide transparency and accountability. Funding shall be for 10 years of the date of approval of the ULIP application. Members of the body shall be nominated by city council members and community boards whose districts overlap the aamup study area, with a priority for tenants to be represented.
I have just a quick question.
Go ahead, Kathy.
So, and the only paid person on this is the facilitator. Everybody else would be a volunteer.
Right, correct.
Mr. Delman?
Sorry, just to nail down this mechanism. There is a body that will be appointed of, various representatives of the community, and then those representatives will then help select the consultant?
No.
I'm sure they'll, I don't know the answer to that. I'd rather not get into that. I don't really know. The RFP will be issued through probably through the city of New York. But what did they do in Gowanus? They did it totally independently, right?
Yeah, I can speak to that.
Oh, wait. Oh, Alex, why didn't you? You were so eager to do it. Oh, okay.
We can tag team. So, in Gowanus, I should just clarify that City Hall did play a little bit of a role in getting Ford Foundation to fund it because it was a priority of the community. Ford was more of like the fiscal conduit to enable it. The council members really led the RFP process, and I think they had a small committee who selected the consultant, who was James Lima. I think Ben Margolis, he's the lead facilitator, and he may have spoken at a past.
Yeah, he's spoken at MCOM meetings before.
So I would, without getting into the minutia of it, it was actually like quite collaborative, and the council member. I mean, this is something that you can stipulate, but the Shahana Hanif really made it a collaborative effort to engage, to work with the community board to make sure whoever is selected, and then there was like an open call for different topic-based committees to join from the larger community. So I've been to a number of the task force meetings. I can get into it, but I would say it was like very collaborative.
Jack, would you like to make a motion?
Oh, yeah, yes, after just one, the body would be a nonprofit, I assume?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yes, Robert.
No, I was gonna make a motion.
Oh, no, make them.
So, a motion to support, I don't know how.
Yeah, a motion to add this to our, to approve this condition.
Beautiful.
It has to come out of your mouth.
Right, that was him just wording it, it was actually me speaking, right?
Okay, seconded by Nix.
Okay. Springsteen, since I'm here, I'll just call the roll.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, Pierre Albert,
Yes.
Peter Nekwe, Princess Ben James,
Yes.
Robert Callahan,
Yes.
Barbara Cofield,
Yes.
Edward Delman,
Yes.
Mohammed Hassan, Jamel Henderson, Kathy Issa, Peter Crashes,
Yes.
Nicola May, Francis Langley,
Yes.
Sarah Lazor,
Yes.
David Mantel, William Meehan,
He wasn't feeling well, so
Quasi Mensa, Mimi Mitchell,
Yes.
Tracy Nottingham,
Abstain.
Pio Ortiz, Robert Puka,
Yes.
Anika Roach, Jack Robinson,
Yes.
Connor Ross,
Yes.
Ezra Roth, Katie Taylor,
Yes.
Dana Thompson, Dana, Brianna Yue,
Yes.
sorry, Gil Baconi,
Yes.
Cheryl Wolcott,
Yes.
Sharon Wedderburn, yes, Elaine Weinstein,
Yes.
did I miss anyone?
Give this is one of 13.
Believe it or not, that was one of the ones I felt would be fairly non-controversial. But I have another one that I think is even less controversial. Let's see how wrong I can be this time.
Wait, hold on.
Can I just ask a procedural question, just because there are now 12 of these? Is it possible to set a time, and if we don't finish, we do the other 6 on a special meeting? I mean, this
There's
is,
no more room for meetings, so we're really
yeah,
gonna have to
there
kill
are
it.
plenty of days
So
between
let-
now and next Thursday, Sharon. I mean, people have lives and kids and responsibilities, and we're all volunteers, and
So
I can't sit in this seat
let's see
until
where,
midnight.
let's see how far we get tonight.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion?
But let's, to the extent we can keep the conversation moving, I think that's, everybody will appreciate. Okay, so, second, there's 2 now that deal with affordable housing. Again, I was hoping this would be non-controversial. Probably some of you have heard that the City of Yes passed today. One of the things that's in City of Yes is the ability to map MIH option 3, the deep affordability option, without having to map options 1 and 2. And so this proposal is that we ask that MIH options 1 and 2 are removed from the application such that only deep affordability option number 3 is mapped.
Sounds like a good plan. Terrific. Sounds like a great plan.
Okay, so
Great
hold
plan.
on, there are questions, of course. Mr. Delman, Mr. Callahan, who was in the back that raised their hand? Nix, no, not Nix, Jamel. Okay, Mr. Delman?
So just to clarify, both for myself and for anyone who forgets, MIH option 3 is 40% AMI? Is
It's
that
an
right?
average of 40% AMI, 20% affordable and 40% AMI.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
MIH option 3 is 20% of the affordable floor area, of the residential floor area, affordable at an average of 40% area median income, which is about.
It's in between 40 and 60%, actually.
That's one.
Yeah,
It's an
you said
average.
the average, but it's really gonna end up, in real life numbers, being between 40 and 60% in that particular, for what we're asking.
Isn't that option 1, 25%, it's
No.
60% with 10%?
I'm not mistaken, option 1, oh wait, which one's 80%?
That's not.
I don't wanna get caught up in the numbers, but
I think one is 60%, is 25% at 60% AMI with 10% of that at 40.
With 10%, right.
Right, but option 3 is 20% at 40. PCP
Yes.
folks, do you want to back?
So HPD over here, so option.
Speak loudly, please.
Yep, option 3 is 20% at an average of 40% AMI, so
Right.
that means that units would need to be equally above and below 40% AMI.
Right, that's what I'm saying, so equally above and below.
Right,
So,
right, but it has to average, it has to average to
I don't
40.
want people getting I don't want people getting the idea that there is going to be a plethora of 40% AMI units available. It's, right, yeah.
I think everyone knows what an
So,
average is.
right, and when we do the averages in the numbers, it's usually around, truly, 40 to 60%.
No, that's not an average, that would be 50 then.
Right.
Yeah, no.
If you have an apartment at 50% AMI, you need some at 30%.
Right, yes, absolutely.
To average,
yeah.
okay, so
Right, yeah.
is everybody clear on that point? Okay, good.
Mr. Callahan?
I'd like to make a motion.
Oh, wait, we haven't finished.
I think that's a great idea though.
I would
it's a great attempt.
First try. We have 13 of them, which is very easy.
Right. I just have a very quick question. By removing MIH 1 and 2, what are we giving up? Are these buildings going to be taller?
No.
No, you're not changing the envelope of the building.
Hold on a second. Carter, you had a question? Sarah?
So option 3 is certainly way better than MIH options 1 and 2. I know I'm going to be told this is impossible, but
It's not impossible.
I really think that a bigger percentage of the buildings than just 20% of each building.
Thank you. And that is also what we've discussed and what other members of this committee have been asking for.
35%.
So let's also put that up on the screen as something that we should be discussing, please.
We can certainly ask for that, but we need a way to ask for it because there is no MIH option that covers that. So if we want to make sure that we do communicate, we want a mapping of 3, not 1 or 2. So if
But that's already given to us by the city of Yes, no?
Well, no, this application is presented by DCP, maps 1, 2, and 3. We do not want 1 and 2, we want.
No, I understand,
We want 3.
right.
So we want to remove options 1 and 2 from the application.
Yes.
So that's all this does, and if we want to talk about a way to go beyond that, let me suggest this, because there's another slide after this that talks about deeper affordability on the city-owned land on city-owned sites that are part of this rezoning that I was trying to get to with the comment you made by email earlier.
But if actually, so hold on one second, okay, Sarah, I know the constant quest for affordability. The way we can say it, at least at the MIH level, our preference would be to maximize the affordability.
Yeah, to maximize the percentage of the buildings.
No, just maximize the affordability,
Right, to
and then those
maximize-
details can be.
So maybe we can, let me give this a shot. You want more than 20% affordable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how about,
And at a lower amount.
Yes.
well, then we have to create a new MIH option, which we can do. We won't get,
But we're
not,
not gonna
But we
accomplish
might as
that
well say the
tonight.
things that we want, and
it'll be a long night, but we can try that.
So, and it's not just, because the city-owned properties are kind of a separate thing, but I'm talking about the, like 5,000 units that are going to be created throughout the whole freaking area, so, yes.
Yeah.
I think HPD has a.
Okay.
Let Sarita speak.
Very quick comment on transparency, since there was specifically a question about are there any downsides to removing the other options. I think just want to make sure everyone's eyes wide open that option 3 is fewer affordable units. Option 1 is 25% at 60%, so that's 25% of the units in new market rate buildings would be affordable. With option 3, it's 20% of the units. So I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that for transparency.
Absolutely.
But again, if you map them both, no one will choose option 3.
Right, well, but the average black family in this district, it's only available for option 3. So that is why, unfortunately, we have to give up 5% in affordable units, which is exactly why, per my email, we're asking to, I'm not saying to scrap that, but we need to increase the number of units as a percentage that we're asking for. We have a unique opportunity to do so, and once again, we'd also like to set a precedent for developers in this area.
How about if we add, how about if we amend this to create a new MIH option 3.5?
Sure.
No, seriously. Ask for the creation of a new MIH option 3.5 to be co-mapped with option 3 that includes apartments at,
We will just do 40 to 60% though, is what.
you want 40, but that's more than option 3. You want lower affordability, no? You want a lower average than 40, because option 3 is 40.
So there are two different discussions. Mary, where do you want the price point? Do you want the price point so that it's 20 or 30% of the AMI and that predominates, or do you want more units at what is existing and
more
we?
or lower AMI?
More units.
More units.
Okay.
So you want more units,
More
but,
units.
but keep the affordability the same.
Thank you. But, or lower, that's why I said 40
That's
or 60% AMI. So you're saying that that's not possible. So you're basically saying that we can't have deeply affordable and more units, as deeply affordable as I'm asking.
So you're asking two different things. It's
Okay.
not mixed. That's what I'm saying. It's two separate
okay.
things. I'm not saying.
Fair.
Jamel?
So, I feel like this presentation is like a child that doesn't listen to us. It's very hard-headed.
I appreciate that.
You have, again, I'm just go back to what I've been saying. You got over 500,000 plus New Yorkers who are still waiting for another opportunity for Section 8 public housing to be open to apply. And I cannot believe that powers that be are in this room are literally going to show us and tell us that the lowest we can go is 40% AMI when I'm looking at the city's website right now and it still shows units based off of the HPD website at 30% AMI. First of all, hold on.
We're gonna get to that.
If the city is not moving that way, get it off the website. Don't give people false hope, because this is what I'm looking at. And my simple thing is this: with everything that's going on in our community, especially with my people that's constantly being forced out, and I have no problem as part of a tangible solution, creating an ad hoc subcommittee where we create academic evidence and report to counter this, to show the importance of why 30% is needed in our districts, because we have so many families that are still waiting that cannot afford a 50% AMI, which is $1,300 for one bedroom, a 60% AMI, which is for those who's making income at $65,000, let alone 80% AMI. It is disrespectful. And I have no problem creating a counter presentation to it, but I will not sit here and accept anything that is 30% or anything less than 40%, because 30% is what we need. I'm tired of hearing people say, oh, 40% is okay. How are we living in a time right now where we just want to sit back and really say it's okay to let this happen while our city and our elected officials who are not doing anything that they're supposed to be doing, most of them, are getting paid $150,000 a year of our taxpayer dollars, and we supposed to be okay with this? I will not support this. If it's not 30%, I'm not supporting it.
Oh, let's change it to 30% then.
Okay, well, let's have,
Wait, hold
you're
on.
saying
So hold on.
that we're asking, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
So you did talk about let's propose something like a
Right.
3.5. So Jamel, exactly in conversation, we know that it's inadequate, right? And I hope you don't see me as a power that be, but a community person who's lived here all of her life, right?
20% of units at 30%?
It's just
But
not enough.
Jamel, there are two elements to this. It's number of units and the affordability level. There are two different elements.
Madam Chair, if there's a 500 unit that's being built, 10% of that is what, 50? So what, 20% of what's that, 16, 17 units out of 500, if I'm thinking, if I help me math, because I'm not,
around there,
right?
Yeah.
16 units at 30% AMI, so that means the other 450 some odd people
Exactly.
who may not know our community, who's making 80% AMI, 70% AMI, 60% AMI, will be walking around doing it whatever, while those who afford the 16 don't even have a community because they feel like they can't even afford to be there.
Right.
Y'all gonna tell me that's okay?
Jamel, thank you. Mr.
Yeah.
Delman?
So, I think first I would just ask everyone in this room, maybe like Gib is a power. He's giving us a presentation. He's trying to help us have a conversation. Also, Gib didn't decide the MIH options. I think we're trying to have a conversation about how we can improve upon the things that are in the plan. And so if people think that MIH option 3 is inadequate, then we're having that conversation, and let's put what we would rather want instead here. It may not happen, but this is the process that we're doing it. So I don't think there's any need for like attacking the presentation or
No one's attacking.
I'm just saying.
Okay, hold on. Mr. Delman has the floor. Hold on. Mr. Delman?
Thank you. We're all friends in this room. Let's just have a conversation, and if we want to try and improve things, let's talk about how we can improve it.
Thank you, Mr. Delman. Puka, Katie, and then Jack.
I don't want to be here till 12 o'clock. Short and sweet. Short and sweet. I want to make a motion to.
Let's have something to say. We have something to say.
Excuse me, I'm speaking. We have 13. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 13 proposals to go through.
Okay,
If
so-
you want to get home before 11 o'clock, we have to limit the number of questions to each proposal. I would like to make a motion that we support this resolution with the changes that he just made. If you can read what you just made, the changes that you made, please.
We actually did not discuss the percentage, that's the other.
I made a motion. I made a motion.
No second, so we're going to
Disagree
continue
with
the
your
discussion.
motion, relax.
Go ahead.
Relax.
Go ahead, Katie.
Because we didn't decide, he came up with 35%, that's a good step.
Well, I took
think he
35%
was-
for Mimi
let's get
and
at-
30%
Let's
from
get at what's being
Janelle.
proposed, let's just get a percentage, 40%, is the 35% sufficient? At 30% AMI, or is 40% what you're looking for? What do you want to propose? Percentage of the units that would be at 30% AMI, that's
It has
the
to be
number.
way up more than
Do you want, what do you,
I'm
should be
looking at
40,
this
40
or better.
40%?
40% of what? 40%?
We're not getting 40%.
40% of the units.
40% of the AMI or 40% of the units?
The units, he
That
said.
are at 30% AMI.
Jamal, 40% of the units or
Square feet.
40% at AMI?
Of the units,
It
at
gets
30%.
better than units. All these little studios.
What about square feet
It's-
instead
it's
of
square feet
units?
up there. The floor area.
The square feet includes hallways.
Well, it's got floor area there, so
Yes, okay, so this condition now states MIH options 1 and 2 are removed from the application. A new MIH option 3.5 is created and mapped for 40% of floor area, targeting an average of 30% AMI. If that is not possible, then MIH option 3 is mapped.
Motion again.
Mimi, wait, Mimi? Mimi?
Thank you. That looks good, but it's actually not good. And you know I'm totally with you, you know, right? Problem with 40% is that no one's gonna do it, and then they're just gonna relate back to option 3. So we're gonna just be exactly where we were. So I really do think that maybe we're in a better position if we kind of try to come up with something that's a little bit more palatable. Right now, and we can stay with the bones of MIH3, and instead of 20% of the units, could we push for 25 or 30% of the units?
Okay,
What is the, and does that, I mean, I'm talking
which
to
AMI?
our committee about that, and then also lower the AMI requirement. Because right now, we're at, I'm sorry, I'm doing lots of.
So why don't let's focus on two numbers, the number of, the amount of floor area affordable and the AMI target. So I think you said 30% of floor area?
Would be, yeah, 25 to 30%. So I was going to put it out for, I thought that we were going to discuss it. I was not coming in to make the actual concrete proposal.
We do
But
have
however.
we do have a few of these. I would suggest maybe we work towards a motion, because there's only 5% between 25 and 30, so we could.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
maybe we go with the higher number.
That'd be great.
Okay.
That'd be great. Go with 30. I love it. I just don't want them
Okay,
to
but
decline that.
Again, we could go around in this.
Yeah.
Jamel specifically mentioned 40, so I put 40 there. We can go, at some point, somebody does need to make a resolution, a motion, and then we just vote.
I made a motion.
Can I make a?
It wasn't seconded.
So we just adjusted to 40. You want to make a motion
I
again?
make a motion again, then we support the resolution.
I second that wonderful motion.
Kathy?
I just have a question. This harkens back to the negotiations we've had with the people who are building the building on the McDonald's lot. If you put in there, if that is not possible, then MIH option 3 is mapped. They will map MIH 3. I understand why it's there. I understand why it's there, because not having it there is worse.
They're never gonna pick what we've asked for.
Okay, that's fine, we can
Okay,
take
so
that
we'll
out.
take that
I
out.
don't think that really changes the sense of this.
I think the sense
What
of
we're
it
saying,
should
one
be that we
insurance remove says the same thing, and in terms of those, we're gonna go to that, only what's left, if they're not gonna expand it.
Yeah, now,
Yeah, there's
Is
a
that-
risk there. I understand the risk, but
we have a motion and a second, and I think it's up to the chair to decide how much discussion we
So,
have.
so one more question, Jack, and then we're going to take a vote.
Is this a public
Sorry.
or private or both?
Only private.
Only private, okay.
Sharon?
But if this isn't realistic and we vote on it, we're gonna end up back where we are, so we
Right.
need to
That's
come up
right.
with realistic
Right.
numbers that we think will go past.
Well, this is, like all of these things we're gonna vote on, this is a message to the city council member. This is saying, this is what we wanna see, so if the city council member determines that this can't be done in the scope of this ULURP application, I think we can rely on her to choose the option that is going to be the closest to this.
And just to remind everybody, I think the last vote that we had on a ULURP that passed in this committee and the community board, the council member did better than what the community board approved. So she's definitely, I'm not, I'm not.
That's
so sure
that's debatable, but let's not get into that.
But it will push her.
Right.
It will prompt her to
She
take the examination.
actually.
It's okay, I was
Yeah,
keep
why
moving.
don't we not get
So
into that?
let's call, I'm calling the roll.
Good.
I'm calling the roll, okay? Pierre Albert. Princess Ben James.
yes.
Robert Callahan.
Yes.
Barbara Cofield.
Yes.
Edward Delman.
Yes, please.
Jamel Henderson.
Yes.
Kathy Islam.
Yes.
Peter Crashes.
Yes.
Nicola May.
Yes.
Francis Langley.
Yes.
Sarah Lazar.
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell.
Yes.
Tracy Nottingham.
Yes.
Fio Ortiz.
Yes.
Robert Puka.
Yes, please.
Anika Roach. Jack Robinson.
Yeah.
Connor Ross.
Yes.
The sole mapping.
Katie Taylor.
Yes.
Dana Thompson. Brianna Ua.
No.
Gib Baconi.
Yes.
Cheryl Walcott.
Yes.
Sharon Wedderburn, yes. Elaine Weinstein.
Yes.
All right.
Hold on. 22 in favor, 1 no. Motion carries.
Now, if you like that one, you're really gonna like this one. All right, this is another, this is the flip side of affordable housing, which is the city-owned land, okay? Now, this covers 5 lots that are cited in the project description, but that aren't already, committed developments with HPD. these five are 457 Nostrand, 1134 Pacific, 1110 Atlantic, 510 Claremont, and 178 Brooklyn. And here we are looking for all of these, a commitment that all of these be developed as 100% affordable, targeting an average income of 35%. Again, the 100% number probably isn't, we can't do too much better than 100%, right, at these buildings, so hopefully that's not up for debate. And then we have the 35% we can get at AMI level, we can talk about if we want to talk about that as well. But this will also cover any other city-owned sites that are added in case the council member negotiates for additional city-owned sites to be added to this project. The same guideline would apply to those sites.
Okay, so Mr. Delman, Dr. Lazar.
Okay, so this is the good stuff, basically. You know, the finances of affordable housing are, it's expensive to build, and one of the best ways to build affordable housing is on city-owned land, because the land is free. It's from the city. So 35, let's I'm gonna get ahead of it, let's do better. Like, let's say 30, or why not even 25? I don't know. Dare to dream. I've been on the same page the whole time, my guy.
Dr. Lazar?
Yeah, somehow I missed 178 Brooklyn Avenue, and I'm realizing that's right around the corner from here.
It's a school.
It's a DOE site.
Yeah, and once upon a time was a child care facility. Now I think it's being used for an alternative school.
Right, no, I'm aware, I guess I just didn't realize that the scope of this was shooting out so far. Part of the reason why I bring this up is because I was under the impression that there could eventually be an Atlantic Avenue rezoning in Chiosei's district, not in Crystal Hudson's district, like moving eastwards. That may come at a certain point, and I'm wondering, like, is this now taking away the possibility of this being part of a later rezoning?
Are you talking about 1024 Fulton?
No, I think there was discussion at some point in the past where I think, maybe I'm talking out of school, but there may be another rezoning that maybe comes to Atlantic Avenue further east at someday in the future, because yeah, and at that point, if this thing in Chiosei's district has already been rezoned as part of aamup, then it's not really a negotiation that can happen later on in a future rezoning further east. I don't know.
So let me speak to that. So these actually aren't rezonings yet. These are just UDAPs. They're transfers of city-owned land that will be developed as affordable housing. These are in other words, these are non-zoning public benefits. It's additional affordable housing being created on city-owned land.
So those sites are not being rezoned?
I mean, I think that
slated or under consideration.
First read, you want to?
Yeah, I think Alina and I can provide some additional context.
Sarita, please speak up.
Yeah, so I think we can provide some additional context here. So I know last time I was here, we had a map that showed you all the different public sites in the area that we have actions for. So right now, in addition to Dean and Bergen sites, which we talked about last time, 457 Nostrand is going to be rezoned. 1134 Pacific Street and 1110 Atlantic are both going to be rezoned and have disposition actions. And yeah, 450 and 457 Nostrand are also going to have a disposition action. So right now, those three are all part of the rezoning and disposition.
And they'll come back as dispositions under a separate process here, or they won't? Okay.
So, no, the plan is for them, they're moving forward right now with disposition actions. They do not have UDAPs currently, so I don't know, Lena, if you want to talk more about the process or like any future actions that would be needed.
Yeah, so I think if there are any future actions that are needed, they would go back to the dealer. But for
that was helpful. Does everybody understand? Some of these are part of rezoning, some of them aren't. If they need more density later, they would be submitted as new yearly applications.
Mr. Dowman?
And just like one follow-up question, these sites, are these sites necessarily within the actual aamup zone?
No.
Or they're not, right?
Because there's a
that's what I thought.
a wider area that you have to look at its effects within that.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Mr. Cooper?
Sorry, I think that's.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Sarita.
Yeah, it's gonna be that second on 1134 Pacific, that is within the aamup rezoning. Is
No.
it
But she's-
property?
It's all the way on the east side.
Puka?
Discussion done?
Puka?
Okay, I wanna make a motion that we support this, this condition.
Wait, we're not
No,
gonna-
wait.
We're gonna drop.
We didn't discuss the AMI piece
Well,
about whether we wanted to
twenty-five
get into
percent was
30?
proposed, right?
Yes,
Mr.
25.
Baumann?
Okay,
Any going once, going twice?
let's do it.
So,
Yes, let's.
Okay, so restate it so we can, have the motion restated, please.
Okay, so the condition now reads, HPD commits to developing the following sites as 100% affordable housing, targeting an average income of 25% AMI. Those are the 5 sites, plus any other city-owned sites that are added to the application for development as affordable housing prior to its approval by the city council.
Make a motion that we accept the resolution.
Second.
Connor seconds. Kathy, you have a question?
Yeah, I just, and pardon me if I should know this. If we say that, does this rule out these locations being used for supportive housing, like that's being built on Dean Street in Bergen, senior housing or,
Homeless.
Any kind of special housing?
I mean, we're asking for affordable housing. I think that what's the,
Sarita?
Do you guys
This-
understand my question?
classify
I understand
Dean
your
and
question.
Bergen.
It doesn't rule that out,
Okay.
at all. In fact, supportive housing usually serves like the lower end of the spectrum.
Right, I just didn't know if it has to be designated ahead of time, one way or the other.
No,
Okay.
and I think, I said this last time several times, I just wanna remind everyone that this process, although we have like actions moving forward with the zoning proposal, for any of these sites to actually get built, we're gonna need to go through a request for proposal process, where there would be public engagement, where there would be public workshops, we would be discussing priorities for the program and the income. So this is helpful now, but there's still gonna be like a public engagement process down the line.
Which is or is not listened to, given that we went through one of those in Dean and Berger and are completely different than what you guys said. I just had to be snarky, I'm sorry, I apologize, but.
But
Yeah,
let me
it's
say,
okay.
the benefit of doing this now is effectively at this level of
that's
AMI,
great. It's
we're
great.
calling on the city to provide additional subsidy to get
Yeah.
this done at lower income levels. That's what this means.
Okay, so I'm gonna call the roll. Pierre Albert,
Yes.
Princess Benjane,
Yes.
Robert Callahan.
Yes.
Barbara Cofield,
Yes.
Edward Delman,
Yes.
Jamel Henderson,
Yes.
Kathy Island,
Yes.
Peter Crashes,
Yes.
Nicola May,
Yes.
Francis Langley,
Yes.
Sarah Lazar,
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell,
Yes.
Tracy Nottingham,
Yes.
Theo Ortiz, Robert Puka,
Yes, please.
Jack Robinson.
Yes. Go for it.
I caught myself. Connor Ross,
Yes.
Katie Taylor,
Yes.
Dana Thompson, Rihanna Ua,
Yes.
Gilbert Coney,
Yes.
Cheryl Walcott,
Yes.
Sharon Wedderburn, yes. Elaine Weinstein,
Yes. 23 in favor, 1 no. Motion carries.
Okay, now we're gonna go on to the next two proposals attempt to align the aamup zoning with the Community Board's September 2019 M-Crown resolution. The first one deals with these lots here on these mid-block lots on Pacific Street, Dean Street, and the north side of Bergen Street along these streets. So here, the Special Atlantic Avenue Mixed-Use District that's proposed in the aamup ULURP application includes an incentive. Includes an incentive for non-residential ground floor. So here we're asking that incentive also restricts 0.5 FAR to light industrial, arts-related, cultural, civic, and repair and production services uses as was described in the September 19 M-Crown resolution. So this is the job-creating uses that have been a focus of M-Crown for the last 10 years. Again, this covers the lots on these two blocks. These Pacific Street, Dean Street, north side of Bergen Street, between this is Grand Avenue and Franklin Avenue. So if you look at these areas here that have the green dots on them, we're talking about the streets, the east-west streets in those green dotted shaded areas.
So repeat the streets again.
No.
Okay, so this covers this covers east-west streets between Grand Avenue and Franklin Avenue, Pacific Street, Dean Street, Bergen Street. North side of Bergen Street only. The aamup area doesn't go to the south side of Bergen Street.
Kathy and then Cheryl.
I wanted to make a motion, but if Cheryl has a question, I'll stop her.
You probably said, those are clear lots right now, there's no residential housing or anything in that?
Well, there may be residential housing there, but the aamup rezoning would not force any changes to any lots. In other words, let's say, if you had a house here, the fact that the area was rezoned does not mean you will have to move. You can.
There's no eminent domain.
No. There's no, you don't have to change you're not obligated to change your building to match the zoning.
Mr. Callahan and then Nick.
I've only been here for 3 years, so I'm sorry for making it like this, but I want to understand if there's any precedent for this proposal to restrict it to a particular use case, and you have done this for 10 years, Kevin. I mean this in the best of faith. What do you think the success and likelihood is that there is going to be an attractive tenant to a space like this?
So in answer to your first question, this is similar to what was done in Gowanus with the Gowanus mix. So there is a precedent for having restricted use and an incentive for incentive floor area. The uses that I didn't get into here in our resolution, I didn't get prescriptive with individual use groups because, again, I suspect that this is something the city council member is going to, and the city council land use department is going to spend time with. I just tried to match the language in the Community Board 8 resolution. So this is something that was done in Gowanus. It's something that was requested by the Community Board here. It's something that developers have agreed to in other buildings in the M-Crown zone. So I guess I feel like that being the case, there's reason to expect that it will continue, it's something that's economical for developers. At least it has been for 3 buildings that have gone up in the M-Crown zone.
And to be completely clear about this, because I'm not quite sure I understand how it works, this is an FAR bonus that the developer could take advantage of if they are interested in putting a light manufacturing or other commercial use space at the bottom of their building or somewhere in it, right?
In half of that space, and then the other half they can put any other eligible end use in. Okay. It could be a cafe, it could be it could be retail, it could be whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Audrey?
You said that there are residential houses on that side.
they can put up as high as they want?
No, if you're building residential, I mean, whatever you're building, you're still, you're still bound by the zoning, right? So this zoning is more flexible in terms of giving you density than the current zoning. The current zoning is M11, which is one FAR, like you can think of it like a one-story manufacturing building. It's maybe the most restrictive zoning district in New York City. So this is more than that. This I think I want to say what do we have here like for total FAR available there?
Five total with the 1.1 FAR. So a max of 3.9 for residential, and then you can get up to 5 total.
How many stores? How many stores is
Five.
how high is it?
So if you're just doing residential, then it's up to nine stories. But we allow an extra 2 to 3 stories if you have a mix of uses. So if you're taking advantage of the FAR, you may need some more flexibility.
Nick?
Yeah, may I? Because it blocked my question, or when I look at, for example, the middle street between Grant and Glassing, there is an area that's crossed out in red. Does that indicate that there is residential and existing buildings?
No, these red areas have already, like here, this was a private rezoning, right? Is that and
it's just a commercial overlay because that's
actually there are at least 3 residential buildings, one of which is rent stabilized, the other one is section 8, and then there's a privately owned building. And then across the street, on Pacific Street, there is a number of rent stabilized buildings that are not indicated in the green sections. So I find this map pretty much misleading. If you want me to come up, I can show it on the map, like where I'm really like concerned because that area already we have already privately approved Eli Caliente building 1034 Atlantic. That's right there.
Yeah, that's that.
And we also have the corner building that we just finished on Grant and Pacific. And then phase 2, that building, there's just been a new building finished. So we have the empty lot. So I find this the Olsen lot. So I find this map actually really misleading because it does not show how many actual residential buildings are on this block.
And
No,
how
it's
many
not.
tenants, how many people,
And
how
how many
many
people are there and are endangered of losing their home, and also the constant noise, like these new developments, there has been no Sunday without construction work. We are all like kind of driven out of our house because of the rezoning, and so all these buildings, the existing, actually historical old buildings, are maximum of 3 to 4 stories high, and now we are supposed to be surrounded, we already are surrounded by 9 stories, and 10 Pacific Street, we are now facing 1043, which is like 18 stories on Atlantic, leaning over to 9 stories to Pacific Street. So I'm just like, in the whole new rezoning proposal, would like to come up with something to protect the existing tenants and small businesses, as I pointed out at the last meeting, to not be just pushed out or disregarded in this whole zoning.
So let me say that this is a zoning condition, but there are later ones that talk about what you just said.
But this map still, like the green and the red, is really misguided.
Well, this is just a map of zoning. It's not a map of buildings. It's not intended to be a map of
But
buildings.
so the red indicates that it's like there is residential and commercial, residential and commercial. So I
It's a
don't
commercial
understand.
overlay, as Jonah said. It's zoning. It's not the building that's there. It's simply how the lots are zoned.
So Peter and then Audrey.
To build a little bit on what Robert said about the, because I've attended a bunch of these meetings, and I've heard DCP refer to the issues with this before. And there's a community perspective about this too, in a way. From DCP is to my, and I hate to put words in their mouth since they're sitting right here especially, but they are concerned about flexibility for the property owner, and that sometimes these sites, the areas, the commercial areas might sit dormant for a really long time. And the flip side of that is that the benefit that we're seeing here, light industrial, arts-related, cultural, civic, repair, and production services uses, that all sounds terrific, but it really boils down to specific zoning designations. And we've seen like daycare go into and be counted in this kind of a thing. There's nothing wrong with daycare, but the problem is that, I mean, daycare could rent in any of these commercial spaces. So I would just say that this is not very clearly defined. Like if you want to achieve these things, you know, we should be specifying specifically what zoning, what classifications we're looking for. And secondly, though, I think to Robert's point, and this is I think this is what your point was, that the lack of flexibility kind of inhibits.
I'm so influenced by the Fresh program and how weird and illiberal it's been to have 500 grocery stores. Which I respect what you're trying to do here, Gib, and trying to make it as broad as possible. So that's just where it's the spirit of my question.
Okay, so Peter, it sounds like you're on both sides of this question. On one side, you're saying we should be more restrictive, but on the other side, we shouldn't be too restrictive.
I'm saying that that they're in odds, and I trust in the notion of flexibility more than I trust in defining things too narrowly, because I think that we don't seem to be able to deliver these things very well. We not get what we're looking for.
Okay, so this is more, I mean, this is more flexible because for the reasons that you described. At the time the community board passed on this language, we were actually trying to look towards more flexibility. And since we haven't ever passed anything else since this time, I didn't feel like I had any license to go and make it more restrictive than what's already been passed by the community board.
But again, my point being that because you have this tension, that I would be inclined to say it's better to Robert's point, not to, this is a personal perspective, but it's be better to just let live, in a certain way.
Well, then you probably would be less likely to get these uses. I mean, this by the way, is separate and apart from Fresh. Where Fresh is as of right in Community District 8, it will be after this, if the zoning is approved, it'll still be as of right in these buildings.
Sobering. Okay. More questions? Okay, I'd entertain a motion.
No.
Oh, go ahead, Tracy. I was like, more questions?
Slow hand. Sort of back to what somebody was saying in the beginning, it doesn't require you to meet that zoning bulk, but doesn't that put pressure on the existing owners of those buildings that might be in the small buildings? Doesn't that put pressure on people to sell their property if you rezone those?
It's possible. I mean, your building, if you had a building in this area, you now have, if the zoning passes, you will have more rights in terms of what you can do with your property than you have now. So, you can decide if you want to keep it the way it is, if you want to change it, if you want to sell it to somebody else.
Olga, hold on one second. I just wanted to take an opportunity to introduce or allow her to introduce herself. This is Olga Job. Job, what's the entity called?
Job Development Corp. We are the developers along with ICL of 542D. Yeah, I know the curb cut.
Sorry, because she's traveled far to be with us.
Yes, I apologize that I can't stay for the whole thing. I live in Connecticut now, so New York's too expensive for me. So, but it's very nice to meet all of you, and I will be seeing you all again next week for the full board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, just I just see a resource going out the door. I just want everyone to be aware of that. Marjorie, wait, Tracy, did you finish your question?
Well, no, I think the answer did not get completed.
Okay, sorry.
Well, so if you own property in this area now that's zoned M11, which is very restrictive, if this zoning passes, you will have more rights with what you can do with your property. You're not obligated to change anything, but you could if you thought it was advantageous to you in some way.
Well, I was thinking more that if we rezone the residential properties that are there, people would perhaps feel more pressured by outside people wanting to take their or not take their property, but to use their property and consolidate lots. So in other words, the existing people would feel pressure, undue pressure, sort of like tenant pressure, but these are owner pressures.
Well, the owners own them. They're the ones who, the owner gets to decide what they do with their property. The tenants potentially might face pressure. There aren't a lot of residential buildings in this rezoning area, but that's why we're gonna talk later on about tenant protections and some of the legal services that Mimi mentioned at the November 21st.
Well, yeah, and say there's like owner protections needed sometimes too, not just tenant protections, because owners get shafted as well.
Yes, small homeowners. And property tax will go up with the rezoning.
But I guess just quickly, would a building like Nix's be protected? It's currently a rent stabilized small building, but from what you're saying, that owners can now do, like, with the zoning change, they can do whatever they want. So like, I guess what I'm trying to, not whatever they want, but they have more flexibility. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if they pressure the tenants out of the building, right? And now the building is empty, they can change that into, it doesn't even have to be a residential building anymore. Due to the zoning, they can now make it into, I don't know, a Starbucks or whatever it is that they'd be looking for, but that, you know, yeah, we'll get, like, you can answer.
So while the building is there, the rent stabilized tenants can't be pushed out unless the landlord decides that he wants to deregulate the entire building through either substantial rehabilitation or a demolition plan. And everybody, you know, a lot of our state legislators think demolition plans, that nobody will use that exception to deregulate. But it's already happening on Eastern Parkway, and in an area like this, if you think that you can knock down a rent stabilized building and then build something really, really big that is unregulated.
Right.
So that's why I really hope that we're gonna get to the part at the end about tenant protections, because I think a lot of us have some really big ideas about that.
Okay, so Cheryl, then Mimi.
My question was answered.
Okay, Mimi?
Sorry, so then I guess then can we not put it, because this is not really gonna be covered in the tenant protection section, because it's gonna be kinda too late. Can we put it in that none of the buildings, the existing residential, is there anything that can be done to protect these tenants? Like, do you know what I mean? Like I'm not saying to take away an owner's rights or anything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that.
That's exactly what you're saying.
No, because there isn't the same incentive for residential. This is the problem. I'm talking about currently residential buildings. There's no incentive in most rezonings for residential buildings to vacate the tenants and then turn themselves into possibly a commercial or
That's probably not gonna happen.
Well, in this type of situation, it's actually ripe and prime for it to happen. In most rent stabilized situations, it's already nestled in a larger residential area, so the chance of that happening is not there. This, where you have 3 or 4 little residential buildings in between these huge high rises and then other commercial buildings, there's nothing but incentive to get rid of those tenants and to turn it into something else.
The folks from DCP might, or even HPD might have a comment on this, but residential space is a lot more valuable than commercial space. And so it's the idea that if you had a residential building, you'd want to turn it into a commercial.
The money that you make in the commercial business will outweigh whatever you were doing in that residence, especially when you're dealing with rent stabilized tenants. So that's not a discussion that I think is appropriate for this specific. I'm being really specific about this thing here because I do know that block really well. And it's scary. It's scary for those residents there,
So what
because
would you
if you
suggest?
look, it's a perfect place to
Don't be
have
out of
this
order.
type of violent displacement happen.
That's
Yeah.
why we're gonna talk about tenant protections.
Great, but
That's already
Wait,
covered.
Do you see what I'm trying to say?
hold on.
It's-
So
it's a little
Mimi,
backwards.
Mimi, we hear you. Do you want to? Because
Sorry,
Nix
sorry,
has her
y'all.
hand up,
I
and then
went to
Julie.
you. Yeah, sorry.
Nix?
I just want to point out, like, these two blocks that we're talking about, Pacific Street and Dean Street, between Grant and Franklin. I understand there are a lot of commercial, like, commercial zone areas that are underused, maybe vacant, they're empty lots. So I'm totally rezoning those to mixed use, so taking them off the zoning map as just commercial. As of now, they've been zoned as just commercial. So we want housing, so I'm all for the rezoning of these areas that are, I'm sorry? Of these areas that are zoned as of now just as commercial and or vacant lots. There are though, on these two blocks, on these two streets between Grant and Franklin, existing residential buildings. And those are zoned as purely residential buildings. Can those buildings be excluded from the new zoning, which will make it mixed use? Which will then, because if these residential buildings become zoned as mixed use, the developers are more after these buildings, therefore the building owner will be more likely inspired to get rid of these buildings. So what I'm wondering is, can we amend the zoning to say, like, yay, we are fine with rezoning the, as of now, commercial areas, but protecting the residential, the buildings that are zoned as purely residential, and exclude those from the mixed use new zoning right here.
Wait, hold on. Alex or Jonah, can you answer that question?
So I'll start off by saying, I just want to clarify that the zoning today does not allow residential. So I know there's existing residential buildings. They're technically non-conforming, meaning the zoning actually doesn't allow them. The zoning. Again, I'm trying to separate out between the existing uses and what the zoning allows. Because I know the map doesn't look like it is on the ground because the zoning hasn't been updated since 1961, and all these buildings are actually built probably before zoning was instituted. So when we look at rezoning this area, we have to create basically what's called a land use rationale, meaning the boundaries of the rezoning have to be consistent with all property owners, otherwise we get sued. At the end of the day, you know, you can recommend cutting out chunks of properties. The concern is that it brings into question the underlying zoning for the entire area, because if you're treating one property different than another property, it does bring into question about the legal standing of the zoning, because you're arbitrarily giving different rights to different properties. So I just want to.
What about grandfathering?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like the zoning today is M1. The existing residential uses are grandfathered in the sense that they exist. You would have to exclude larger chunks than just those individual properties. I also want to note that when we can do, what I would recommend is looking at the environmental review. We actually have to go through and determine whether sites would be projected for redevelopment. We use standards that we do across the city, but also we look at the local land use conditions, and we've identified areas that would be subject to residential redevelopment. I can't speak to these exact lots. My assumption is that the combination of the lot size with the existing rent stabilized units, with the number of units and the built FAR, which is how big the building is, it is unlikely that those sites would be redeveloped, either for commercial use or redeveloped for residential. I'm saying it is unlikely.
You just have to consolidate the lot.
I'm not lying to you about that, but we use market conditions for the local area plus the surrounding neighborhoods to make that determination. And it is pretty consistent, analysis based on the allowable, like the rights that are given versus what's currently there.
Thank you, Alex.
Yeah.
So at this moment, I would entertain a motion. Puka,
I make a motion that we accept the draft resolution.
do I have a second?
Second.
Connor, thank you.
Did we resolve this question about the carve-out or exception issue?
I don't want to put words in Alex's mouth, but it's not really, it's not really consistent with the idea of doing a neighborhood plan that you sort of get in and decide to draw lines around individual buildings. And I think, if it's not clear, the point Alex was making about the likelihood of redevelopment, this idea of bulk analysis, like at what point do you cross a threshold that a building, that its building's value couldn't go up enough to justify redevelopment, is a well-established principle. Even when we have looked at the M-Crown district over the last 10 years, we bake those kinds of assumptions into our models that forecast how much housing was likely to get built. I kind of agree with Alex here. When we looked at some of those buildings, the residential buildings, like for instance, there's a bunch here on Bergen Street, but these buildings are like, they're like 5-story, buildings, residential buildings. They're not going to get redeveloped with a lot of people living there. They're not going to get redeveloped into mixed-use buildings anytime soon. It just doesn't pay to go through the whole process of trying to, clear the building and demolish it, to build something that wouldn't be that much bigger anyway.
Kathy, you have a question? Okay, so I'm gonna call the vote. Here, Albert?
I'm sorry, I have a question. So at the beginning, Dick, you mentioned the super proposal for 1.1 FAR, and then like I said, when you just voting for the FAR, for the 1.1,
So there's a 1.1 FAR incentive that's part of the application now. What we're just saying is we want 0.5 FAR for uses that have been deemed by the community board to create the kinds of jobs we would like to see added to the neighborhood, especially that are accessible to people without a college degree.
So we're just voting on that.
That's all this is. It's only to carve out half an FAR for those types of industries.
Princess Ben James?
Yes.
Robert Callahan?
Yes.
Barbara Cofield? Edward Delman? Jamel Henderson? Kathy Islin?
Yes.
Peter Crashes?
No.
Nicola May?
Abstain.
Francis Langley?
Yes.
Sarah Lazar?
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell?
No.
Tracy Nottingham?
Abstain.
P. Ortiz?
No.
Robert Puka?
Yes.
Jack Robinson?
No.
Connor Ross?
Yes.
Katie Taylor?
Yes.
Brianna Ua?
Yes.
Gil Vacconi?
Yes.
Cheryl Walcott?
Abstain.
Sharon Wedderburn, yes. Elaine Weinstein?
Yes.
The vote is 12 yes, 5 noes, 4 abstention, motion carries.
Okay, next one, similar. There's also a mixed-use zone on the south side of Atlantic Avenue between Classen and Franklin Avenues. This is an MX zone. It could have the same type of incentive in terms of job creating uses. So in this case, this would modify the zoning, so it would create an incentive bonus. It doesn't have an incentive bonus right now, but it would have an incentive bonus that would include job creating uses at the same 0.5 FAR.
Did you skip one?
I don't think so.
The one about the Bergen Street and Dean Street?
That's next.
Okay. I think it's here on this one.
Don't worry, we're not gonna miss that one. Similar idea. This also has a height reduction without, like, the zoning that's proposed would be an 18-story building. We're proposing a basic, like a base of 14 stories, but with an incentive 1.1 FAR if there's a mixed-use option with light industrial uses and selected. Similar to what we just talked about for the east-west streets below Atlantic Avenue. Does that make sense?
No questions?
Same concept as the other.
Elaine?
sites.
Yeah, is this where I'm confused where the shuttle is.
The shuttle's kind of like here.
It's right there, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Goes
so
over,
okay.
But you're creating something that's new.
So this is an
It's not-
18-story building alongside, or potentially.
But, so what's proposed in the application is an
Right.
18-story building. What we're saying is height of 14 stories, additional, like let's say an additional 2 stories if you take the incentive and add the job creating uses.
What are the cross streets?
The cross streets are Classen Avenue and Franklin Avenue, and we're talking about just this area on the south side of Atlantic Avenue between Classen Avenue and Grand Avenue.
Peter?
Don't wanna, so, not to repeat my point, but I think, so in this case, you're adding FAR, which could be as much as a couple more stories for a manufacturing use that may or not be well defined at the end of the day. And it's a density bonus to the developer. When we get to the public open space thing, I'm gonna be making the same point. I don't think we should be creating density bonuses in this way. Like,
Well,
I don't agree with it.
There will be there are density bonuses in the application. There were in the section we just voted on.
Right, but I think in this particular case, we're generating yet more. So I voted no against the last one, so you can all judge that from that perspective, but I'm just saying here that it's an additional, anyway.
So what's proposed here, even with the 1.1 FAR incentive bonus, would be a building that's not as tall as what is currently in the application. Just so you understand, it's not the same as the plaza bonus.
So you're changing the designation of the base zoning as well? in
Yes.
this? Okay, so that I didn't understand.
Right.
So can you delineate what the change in the base zoning is?
Well,
From the DCP proposal?
So it's
Was 18.
it's the difference between the R9 and R9A and R8A.
So it was 18 and now it's gonna come down?
Yes.
Right, okay. Is it 2-story down, 3-story?
It would probably be 2 stories fewer.
Who go first and then Sarah?
Okay.
Oh, I was just gonna make a motion to support this condition.
Okay, I second.
First of all, I don't even know exactly what are we voting for right now.
So the idea is to add the same type of incentive for the M-Crown uses on Atlantic Avenue that we just voted to do on the streets, the east-west streets south of Atlantic Avenue on Pacific and Dean and the north side of Bergen. Because we have an MX, this is an MX district here, so there's kind of an opportunity to take advantage of that with the same type of, use requirement.
Or you're potentially adding a manufacturing use to Atlantic Avenue.
Yeah, which there are already present in this
But
area.
you're adding 18 stories of residential.
No, it'll be less.
potentially, or-
Well,
Okay,
the
16
proposal is
stories,
18
but
stories.
Still
but
a
it would
lot
be-
of, a lot of new residential density, and then you're adding manufacturing and commercial.
Right, the
So
only,
that-
the
that's
only
my-
difference here between the application and this condition is that the building is slightly smaller, and it includes a requirement for M-Crown uses. Otherwise, it's the same, it's a mixed-use proposal.
We have a motion.
No, Puka and,
No, I think some people are confused. The AMAP plan says 18 stories. We're saying we're lowering it to 14, and we'll give them additional 2 stories if they add some sort of manufacturing. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we're going lower than what the city is asking for, so I don't know why anyone would be against that.
Because they may just waive away the lowering and add the density and create, so maybe if you want to spell out, but I also have a concern about mixing so many different uses in one building, anyway, sorry, Elaine, go ahead.
No. Audrey?
Okay, on Franklin Avenue, we have the shuttle.
Right. Yep, kind of here.
Are they gonna be doing any kind of soundproofing? Because right now, people who live along that shuttle line, they're begging their landlords to find some kind of, soundproofing. Do you know anything?
I don't know, but that wouldn't be covered by this type of condition.
No, but it'll be covered in the POAs. If this passes, we as a committee should put in triple pane requirements for future development. We discussed it at one point.
Yeah, I mean, somebody who's gonna do new construction here, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, if you're doing a new construction building next to the shuttle, you're probably gonna take into consideration the idea that you have a shuttle next to you. Alex?
Sorry, I just want to add to that. So, through the environmental review process, we add these things called designations, which are environmental designations that require developers to do certain things. In the case where noise impacts are significant, it is likely that there would be what's called a designation placed on sites that are adjacent to that, requiring soundproofing as one example. So I would say that you can add that to the recommendations to make sure that that's the case, but that's something that we do look at.
all right, I'm calling the roll.
Wait,
Sorry, Betty, I'm sorry.
To add that.
I know, but it would be a different condition. Can we like pin some of these and come back to them? Because to try to build soundproofing into a use.
It's in a
No,
POA.
he's just saying to support the E, whatever, the E designation, is the only language we're talking about.
Yeah, but that's not.
Thinking it's not.
I know, but it's hard to build it into a condition that relates to something completely different. This relates to use, not to environmental impact. So we can come back to it, but I think we might want to just make a list of stuff to come back to that can be better treated on its own.
Dave?
I was just saying that some of the people who were privileged to live along Dean Street toward Flatbush, when they were doing all their whatever, all these promises about sound and accommodation of your needs, total bullshit. So I really think, you should recognize that. I'm really the only one who's the people.
Thank you. You were the only one. Thank you. So what Mr. Puga was saying, that was a state project, this is a city project. They deliberately removed the community from the development that happened around Atlantic Avenue because we were holding the standards.
I'm not talking about the people who they know. I'm talking about the people further up who are next to all of the renovations that were going on.
And that's beyond.
Accommodations for the family owners.
I got you, but it's not, it was something a state development as opposed to this is a Europe, which is a city process. So there's more ability to have.
There's accountability, you're saying.
Although some of that accountability also came from the community board
That they're
potentially.
being offered again, what is the incentive?
Create manufacturing jobs.
Okay.
So we call question on this?
Okay, so let's continue with the roll. We have a motion, we have a second. Pierre Albert.
Yes.
Princess Ben James.
No.
Robert Callahan.
Yes.
Barbara Cofield.
No.
Kathy Islin.
Yes.
Peter Crashes.
No.
Nicole LeMay.
No.
Francis Langley.
Yes.
Sarah Lazore.
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell.
No.
Tracy Nottingham.
No.
Fio Ortiz. Robert Puka.
Yes.
Jack Robinson.
Yes.
Connor Ross.
Yes.
Katie Taylor.
Yes.
Brianna Ua.
Yes.
Gil Baconi.
Yes.
Sherwood Walcott.
Yes.
Sharon Wedderburn, yes. Elaine Weinstein.
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Do you have how many more?
That was 5.
I don't wanna change myself.
I think that was 5.
I keep thinking the rest are less difficult than these, but,
Like I said, I am worried about jinxing myself. We have a couple, we have a couple more zoning, but not as onerous and,
Not as contentious.
or as dense as the last one, to overload the term.
So the motion carries 14 in favor, 6 opposed.
So I have an assumption, and tell me if I'm wrong. So everything we're doing tonight, the councilperson Hudson, is gonna have the final say. Am I correct? She's gonna
No,
have the
she's
most.
actually, so here is our part of the job. The community board has a part in making its recommendations.
Right.
The next person who will make a recommendation is the council, Borough Hall. And after Borough Hall, it's the council person.
Gotcha,
So we're having our say about what we need to do,
gotcha.
okay?
Yeah, the CPC
sorry,
is
I forgot
between
about
the
that.
borough
Forgot
president
about
and the
that.
council.
Go to the
Right,
next
but
one.
to be realistic, what's gonna happen at the end of this process is the council person is gonna go and negotiate with the city, and they're gonna work out a deal, and hopefully, councilperson Hudson is gonna listen to what the community board said, hopefully. Am I wrong about that, or am I right about the way, that's the way the process
Doesn't matter,
works?
let's keep going,
Correct?
as you say, let's keep going.
Listen, yes, can we project what she will do after she listens? No, but listen, I'm sure she will do.
Okay.
All right.
Andrew's not
Let's
here, right?
move on to our next
Rob,
item.
I think you're the one who wants to
Yeah.
keep things moving.
Yeah, got it, you're right,
Yeah.
okay.
All right, so now we're gonna get to Kathy's slide. This is,
Thank you very much.
this is the,
I do live next door, in full disclosure.
This
Let
is the
everybody know.
part of the rezoning area that's, where the two HPD projects are gonna get developed, the 542 Dean and the 516 Bergen Street projects. Now, this whole area over here is, in order to get, those are both city-owned sites, so in order to get the most density out of those sites for affordable housing, for a senior building and a family affordable building, the zoning is proposed for R7D, okay? But there are other lots that will also get the R7D zoning and go under the application, and those lots do not have any they're not obligated to do 100% affordable. They will have to do whatever the MIH requirement is if they're redeveloped, but they have no obligation to do 100% affordable. The proposal here is that the sites that aren't 100% affordable should be zoned R6A, not R7D. R7D makes sense for affordable housing, but the sites that aren't affordable should get a lower, should not get as much density.
Here, here.
Simple.
So this
Can
is,
you give everybody a perspective, because I don't think everybody realizes what streets those are, so you.
Okay, so this is Carlton Avenue, Flatbush Avenue, Sixth Avenue, Bergen Street and Dean Street. So one of the 542 Dean project, the senior housing project, is here. And over here is the 516 Bergen project, which is the family housing. So these, under this stipulation, these sites would be zoned R7D, but the drag-along lots would be R6A.
Is the police, I'm sorry.
No, so the police station is gonna stay R6B. This is the police station on the corner here. That actually, I don't think that's in the rezoning area. Right.
No, but the fire department is.
The fire department is. I mean, right now it's a fire department. I could make an argument that maybe should get R7D too, because it's city-owned land, and someday it could be something other than a fire department that might be more valuable to the city. I mean, if somebody wants to get on board with that idea, we can talk about that as well. We could, in other words, it would be simple to change the stipulation to,
No, let's not start out yet. So Kathy, Peter.
okay, well, I was gonna make a motion.
What's the dimension, the vertical dimension?
I'm not sure
Just to the left of the blue, that one right there, what's that
this, that's the depth of the lot. It looks to me like it says 130, but I can't be totally sure at this magnification.
Okay.
So it's a
big
lot
lot.
depth of 130
It's a
feet.
very big lot. It's quite deep.
Kathy, make a, Precious?
So here's some questions.
I do have a question, because I mean, I appreciate the step down. And I've said this, originally when these were proposed, we asked about that there would be an extended district, and it was at a minimum kind of not discussed.
Right.
And we expected this, I'm continue to be surprised how extensive it is. In fact, I would almost feel like it doesn't even need to be there at all, given the context of this application. But I'm concerned about especially the corner of Dean and Sixth, because there you've got a large building with rent-stabilized apartments in it, and that same property owner owns the adjacent building further east, and owns the building, literally owns that entire square there, except for one lot. So going to the point of assessing, development risk and displacement, I worry that is actually creating a context in which the displacement will occur. And if the firehouse, if that is meant to be rezoned, it should just be specified as being rezoned here for the sake of city development.
But it's not being.
But so when you're creating, you're upzoning it without saying we are going to do something with this site, it seems problematic and a little insincere.
Can Jonah talk about that?
Yeah, just to clarify, so even if we rezone the fire station, that would still have to have a follow-up action, like go through what's called through a disposition.
For one building?
Even for one building, yeah.
Really?
For any city-owned property. I also just want to clarify, the reason why we drew the boundaries this way was it's hard to legally defend a boundary that's just a mid-block. And so to strengthen the land use rationale, we extended the R7D to include like a slightly larger area and extend it to the corner where closer to the train station. So that was I just want to clarify that. I understand your concern.
I'm always going to say, go stand on the corner and see what would happen if a big building gets built, which is why I appreciate this step down as well. Because if it's not 100% affordable, at least we're coming back down. So, because it's
Can you raise your voice?
Yeah, I just said I appreciate the step down. If you stand on that street corner on 6th Avenue across the street from the precinct, it is so tight, and if you build a big building there, it just seems not necessary on that particular corner, given all the other development that's happening with Atlantic Yards there and everything else. And then I would imagine that it sets the precedent to then rezone Flatbush Avenue. And that's a whole nother kettle of fish. I mean, it's literally backing up on Flatbush there. So that's a much bigger decision and a much bigger conversation. But I would like to, since I have the floor, move that we accept this. condition as presented.
Second.
I have one quick question. What's the storage building, Peter Riley, what's that zone for?
Well, that would also be mapped to R7D under this zoning, right? That is, the Peter Riley is in the rezoning district, but the Peter Riley building actually is denser than R7D today.
Yeah.
So it's unlikely that it's going to change because of the zoning. They have more density than R7D.
So that could change from a storage warehouse to a residential building.
Right, but the way this works is, this is how it was explained to me, I can be corrected by our friends from DCP, but they could turn it into a residential building right now without changing, they could conceivably put more windows in it, and they get all that density at residential, it already exists.
I'll say just in
hypothetical,
if it would map R7D, MIH would be mapped on it, and under that scenario, they would have to include affordable housing today.
Okay, but they'd still be able to redevelop all the density to residential if they wanted to. R7.
The equivalent of whatever the zoning allows.
But what would they do with the extra space?
They would have to, well, that's true.
I think, it's been explained to me by.
Why are we entertaining these?
Yeah, let's
it's probably not gonna happen.
Let's vote.
That's where I was going. Pierre Albert.
Yes.
Princess Ben James.
Yes.
Robert Callahan.
Yes.
Barbara Cofield.
Yes.
Kathy Island.
Yes.
Peter Prashus.
No.
Nicola May.
Yes.
Francis Langley.
Yes.
Sarah Lazar.
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell.
Yes.
Tracy Nottingham.
Yes.
Fiora Ortiz. Robert Puka.
Yes.
Jack Robinson.
Yes.
Connor Ross.
Yes.
Katie Taylor.
Yes.
Dana Thompson. Brianna Uwa. Gil Coney.
Yes.
Cheryl Walcott.
Yes.
Sharon Wedderburn, yes. Elaine Weinstein.
Yes.
Yeah. No, absolutely not. Spot rezoning is in the back of the house. They did it for LA Parente. I don't know if they can't do it.
Motion carries 20 in favor, 1 no.
Sharon, may I ask to read this from the councilwoman? I think it's important before more people exit to hear what you have to say.
Actually it was all covered in, the preamble, so I tried to text you to say it's not necessary, because.
I don't know, I
there's
just
a
thought
misconception.
since she took the time to write it, it would be good to
I know,
present to her.
but you weren't here at the last meeting, and
Right.
she had the opportunity, so she had.
But some of it was very, very late at night, and it was late, a lot of
Yeah,
people
she-
left.
she
We'd like
came
to
at the
hear
very
it. I'd
end.
like to hear it.
We can circulate it, but for the sake of.
2 minutes?
Let's move on. Let's move on. We can circulate it in land use, right? We can circulate it that
And if we
way.
go really fast, we
We
might
can
be
get
able
back
to
to
get
it.
it at the end. Okay, so the next item has to do with large buildings in the aamup zone that are already manufacturing uses. What we don't want to see is manufacturers that are already there in the aamup rezoning area get torn down and be replaced with residential. So there's really 2 of these we're especially concerned about. One of them is 1102 Atlantic, which is the GMDC building, and the other one is 1000 Dean. Both of these are large manufacturing, buildings, and we want to see them stay that way. So this condition states that lots in the Special Atlantic Avenue Mixed Use District which, as of the date of certification for ULURP, contained more than 20,000 square feet occupied by non-residential tenants engaged in uses conforming to M1 zoning, if redeveloped, must contain floor area restricted to M11 conforming uses equivalent to that occupied at the date of certification. So they can't take away M uses that were already there and, you know, large M uses that were already there and turn them into residential. Does everybody understand?
Elaine?
Are they totally occupied now by manufacturing uses? It's fully occupied?
Those are conforming buildings.
They are.
Like, yeah, GMDC is a mission-driven organization that provides space for light manufacturers. And 1000 Dean, because it's zoned M11, I mean, they're conforming uses right now.
I guess the reason I'm asking is because once we lock this in, if for some reason manufacturing uses aren't attracted to the neighborhood again, it'll just be vacant. I guess it's the concern about vacancy that we're locking in.
But it's also, I mean, those, it's also, you know, the flip side of that is if you don't do this, you incentivize conversion to residential, which was not the goal in this area.
Julia, Cheryl, and young lady in the beige, your name? Paula. Paula. Hi, Paula. Okay, nice to have a face behind the email. Again. Julia? No,
Sure, I just have a question. Do you still have a quorum?
We do have a quorum.
Let's keep. How many more people can you lose before you get?
Say that out loud.
How much money you got?
Wedding ceremony club, why don't we provide? Seriously, 2 more people. We have 2 more people.
We have some really good conditions coming up, so don't leave.
I make a motion to support this.
I second.
Okay, we still have a question. Paula?
Would this be applied to block 1200, which would be between Nostrand and Bedford Avenue? That's zoned, half of our block is zoned for M1-1.
Which street is it? Atlantic?
Yeah.
Between Bedford and Nostrand?
Yes.
Is that in the special, is that in the Atlantic Avenue Special Mixed Use District? I don't think so.
Sorry,
We're at the very far east of the rezoning plan, and from what we heard that, we only found out about this last week, Westbrook Memorial Garden, the community garden on the other side, which would decimate us. That this is going to be rezoned as R9A, one below, you know, the very highest in all of New York City, Midtown Manhattan, we're talking. And the other half of the block is all residential, R6A.
But if that's the R zone, I think it's unlikely it's in the Atlantic Avenue Mixed Use District.
Yeah, that's, so, yeah, aamup only covers the northern part of that block.
Yes.
And then I believe, that's the garden just south of, there's a residential building just to the north.
Yeah, so our whole half side of that block on Pacific Street is all R6A, but on the other side it's M1-1, but one of those buildings, which is lot 21, is residential, even though it's zoned as M1-1. It's full of tenants that we are facing a very aggressive landlord, speaking of tenant rights, evictions, the whole lot. So I'm wondering if this falls into this category.
No, the answer is no.
Sorry.
If they're residential today, this is not about residential. This is about buildings that are occupied for commercial, for manufacturing commercial, not residential.
Is it too late to put this up on zoning?
I'm not.
Some sort of zoning?
Maybe, I think maybe we should talk with HB, because my understanding is that that building to the north is governed by the loft board, and there are restrictions on what you can do with tenants, and I think we just want to better understand, but you know, based on our analysis, we didn't assume that building could really redevelop.
And it goes back to what you were saying too about context. Like we only found out about this last week. It's our fault. We thought the rezoning ended at the Armory actually. So we're half residential on that block. Goes to what you're saying about context, what's in there. Our community garden, you know, this is like 90+ members, food justice, we do work with the Armory on horticultural therapy. This is our community center for seniors. Princess, BQLD.
That's what I'm looking, that's BQLD garden.
Yeah, and
That's
that
what
lot
BQLD
5
garden.
has a historic building from the 1900s, like a medical building that would be in that zone of being demolished, you know, being turned to R9A. Like it to me, it's mind blowing that they can go that high on this block with. And sorry if it's bringing in a whole other thing, but I thought it might be under this because we're talking about M1.
But it's, I don't think this only applies to that area that's in the green polka dots on the map that we showed before, the Atlantic Avenue Special Mixed Use District, which, again, that's what this applies to. I don't think that's the area I don't think it goes over to where you're talking about, right? It doesn't go east of Franklin Avenue, does it? South of Atlantic and east of Franklin?
So that area is part of our what we call the C district, or C6 through D, so it's not the MX.
So it's
area.
no, it's not included.
Yeah, it's not, it's part of AMUP, but not part of the area that Gibbs is talking about.
But yeah, also if people in the building are experiencing,
Can we speak up so we can hear?
yeah, definitely, was saying that if you're experiencing landlord harassment and eviction issues, we would definitely want to support how we can.
Free lawyers is the way to go.
That's coming. Don't
Like,
leave.
not about training, this and that.
Right, no,
Okay.
don't worry.
So we have a motion and we have a second. Let's call the vote. Okay? Pierre Albert?
I think he left.
Okay. Princess Ben James?
Yes.
Robert Callahan?
Yes.
Barbara Cofield? Kathy Islin?
She left.
Peter Crashes?
Yes.
Nicola May?
Yes.
Francis Langley?
Yes.
Dr. Sarah Lazar?
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell?
Yes.
Tracy Nottingham?
Yes.
Fee Ortiz? Robert Puka?
Yes.
Jack Robinson?
Yes.
Connor Ross?
Yes.
Katie Taylor?
Yes.
Brianna Ua? Gil Baconi?
Yes.
Cheryl Walcott? Sharon Wedderburn, yes. Elaine Weinstein?
Yes.
Gibbs, how many more strides do we have to get?
Well, I hate to say it, but the other ones, I think they're easier.
Don't jinx it.
That's why
I know.
Gibbs did not answer.
Let me have a look. Give me 1 second, Neil. Let me just make a note on this slide so I don't forget what we just did. All right. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 more. They're not as hard. I wanted to. Anyway, okay. So the next. Well,
I
Sharon's.
was gonna say promises.
You're still tallying the vote, I think.
No, I'm done.
Okay, this is the last zoning one. So this is an important one to pay attention to because one of the things that has come up several times in the discussion of aamup, and of MCrown over the years is people have said, look, rather than put big buildings here on Atlantic Avenue, can we make a park? So this is something that the Department of City Planning took to heart, and they proposed that if you have a building a lot of Atlantic Avenue, you can add a plaza here at street level, and then you'll get an additional density bonus. Is it a density bonus or is it's just additional height?
It's a bonus.
It's a density bonus plus height. Okay, so Atlantic Avenue right now, in the way that most of the zoning for these buildings on Atlantic Avenue goes, in the application is like an 18-story building. So if you do this, you could get another 2 stories, or even maybe more. You might be right. You could potentially get 4 stories to get to 22. I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So instead of an 18-story, what?
It has to come to the community.
Yeah.
It's an authorization.
Right, it's an advisory vote by the community board and then a vote by the CPC, right? Right, so so you could end up with a 22-story building, and here channeling Robert over here, you might have a fresh bonus in the bottom, and so you'd have a 23-story building. So the question is, and I wrote this in the negative because I was kind of expecting the reaction among people here, but some people might feel that they really want the plaza down there and that open space, and they're willing to take a taller building. So this is the question. Again, this is written in the negative, but because that's where I think the temperature is. But if folks like this idea, this is a good time to speak up.
Okay, so wow, that was like almost simultaneous. So Elaine, Callahan, Puga.
Okay, so I was on the steering committee and I remember this proposal. And I guess our questions even then were, do we count on private developers to create a plaza, whatever that means? And is that then open to the public? Is it guaranteed? Can we hold their feet to the fire? Blah, blah, blah.
It is open to the public in theory, but pop spaces in New York City do have a mixed history of actual accessibility.
Exactly.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be green.
Mr. Callahan?
I am.
Right, what does a plaza mean?
Mr. Callahan?
I have no question. I am prepared to make a motion.
Let me just.
So get your questions in, folks.
Okay, Mitchell.
Not everybody here, well, I shouldn't assume, but could you explain the difference between a publicly open accessible space and actually or a plaza versus you know?
Yeah, so
Chelsea Piers.
So the plaza is what's known as a privately owned public space, or a POPS. And when a developer does this, they're responsible for maintaining this space. They have, certain accountability standards, but it is a privately owned space. And one of the knocks against these spaces is sometimes they end up becoming really private, like maybe not that accessible to the public. There's spaces that are planned by the developer, so it's not like the Parks Department came in and proposed a new park and everybody would come to a community engagement session. That doesn't necessarily, take place in this situation either. The flip side of it is adding some more open space at the ground, at grade. Yeah.
So if picture in the city, if you ever go into Midtown Manhattan, then you see these little spaces that are gated off, have gates around them, and they're open, they have chairs. That's basically what it is. So in my personal opinion, I would. Can I make a motion? Or
No, hold it. Mimi has a question, Mr. Callahan. But hold on, superseding all of this, Alex.
I just want to clarify, because I hear you, like there's Trump Plaza, right, which has the elevated stuff. I want to be very, very clear that you are not allowed to put gates up, you're not allowed to put fencing up. You have to meet minimum standards on planting. There are operation hours in terms of making it open. There's even spaces that are 24/7. Some people don't want that because then you want to be able to open at night. So I hear the concerns, but I want to be explicit that it is POPs. It is a public space though. It takes the onus off of the Parks Department and puts the maintenance and operations onto the private developers. So I hear the concern. I just want to clarify.
Is the space,
hold on one second. Mimi,
let me just ask this question. The space that's on Dean Street in between the buildings when we're on our way to Chelsea Piers, would that be considered that type of space? Like they have a dog run there, and then that would be a walking plaza, all of that. Okay.
That's privately owned public. It's not called. Yes, it's privately owned, publicly accessible.
And
space.
so that's the type of space we're talking about.
The people who live there are already complaining. The dog park closed at 6 p.m.
The dog run is closed.
It's an outrageous failure.
And it was not very well built. Blah blah blah. There's
POPs are a
ton of issues.
Because you have no control.
Of issues, yes, because the problem that they're also having is they have no one to talk to
I'm
about
sensing a
that.
consensus in the room, and Callahan is willing to make a motion.
Okay.
Second it.
I am going to make the motion that Peter will second, that we do not Manhattanize Brooklyn in the worst way possible.
Tracy had a.
And we concur with the proposal. we support the
So
proposal.
can we make that motion more aligned with
I
the
would
as
like-
written?
Well, I
Can we ask
think
the
he's
question before we
supporting,
vote?
I would like to support the text of the proposal as written.
And Peter Krause seconds.
Tracy?
You explained what it doesn't do, but I just wanna be sure, what does this proposal actually, can you rephrase what this proposal is going to do? What we're proposing to do?
So it would remove the opportunity for creating these kinds of open spaces on private property, and it would also remove the density and height bonus along Atlantic Avenue. So you would be back to the 18-story building, or 19-story with.
It wouldn't be 22.
It wouldn't be 22 or 23 with the fresh bonus.
Okay, so I'm gonna call the roll.
So voting yes?
Would be no.
Yeah, what does?
Would be no plazas.
Princess Ben James?
Yes, yes, yes.
Robert Callahan?
One yes.
Barbara Cofield?
I hear the Robert.
Kathy Island?
No.
Peter Crashes?
Yes.
Nicole LeMay?
Yes.
Francis Langley?
Yes.
Sarah Lazar?
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell?
Yes.
Tracy Nottingham? Fiora Ortiz?
Abstain. I didn't say anything, so abstain.
Fiora Ortiz? Barbara Puka?
Yes.
Jack Robinson?
Yes.
Connor Ross?
Yes.
Katie Taylor?
Yes.
Brianna Ua? Gilbert Coney?
Yes.
Cheryl Walcott?
Yes.
Sharon Wedderburn, yes. Elaine Weinstein?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
All right, so this next one, now we're done with zoning. All right, next we're into a really exciting subject, tenant protection. And this condition came from an email that Mimi sent earlier today, which is that the city make a 5-year commitment of $750,000 annually to fund free tenant representation under the Right to Counsel program, allocating funding to organizations like the Legal Aid Society and the New York Legal Assistance Group.
Are you excited?
Go, Sarah.
I like
Sarah.
to think that this is, you know.
Okay, so I think this is crucial, and I just want to, sorry, I prepared some notes, but I'm gonna be super fast. Okay, we may have forgotten the reason that Right to Counsel exists in this city is because it was a trade-off, right? The creation of MIH was a trade-off at the city council level for getting Right to Counsel was a concession because we knew that rezonings can incentivize displacement, right? Can put tenants at risk. And since 2020, in the 2 zip codes in this area, 11238 and 11216, there have been 5,685 eviction filings just since 2020. The current representation rate is between 30 and 50% of tenants. So the majority of tenants do not get represented through the Right to Counsel program, either because there aren't enough lawyers available or because they're just over income. If you're a single person, you make $32,000 a year, you're too rich to be representing for free in housing court if you're being sued for eviction, right? And additionally, who is not covered by Right to Counsel, right? Because it's only eviction cases in housing court, right? People who make a little over the threshold. If you're suing your landlord for repairs, you're not covered. Suing your landlord for harassment, you're not covered. If you are fighting DHCR because your landlord wants to demolish your building and is trying to deregulate your whole building based on that plan, or they claim they did a substantial rehabilitation, you're not covered, right?
And
People
how
who
many
have-
years in DHCR to get rent overcharge or
Paula?
any of these
Yeah.
things?
Let's see, Supreme Court cases, deed theft. You could be fighting deed theft for almost a decade, right? 964 Park Place, right? It's only 8 years after the deed theft, and only now is the Attorney General interviewed, but now finally the district attorney has finally started criminal investigation, right? None of these people are covered by right to counsel, and so additionally, I've talked to some supervising tenant attorneys, tenant defense.
Short.
I know. $7,500 is what it usually costs to defend one tenant in housing court, right? $750,000 isn't going to get us super far. So I have a proposal to amend this, okay? The legal funding would include both affirmative and defensive cases, right? And it would include things like DHCR, potentially Supreme Court cases, etc. I would propose that we go bigger with what we ask. I would, if we had defended all those people from 2020 to now, it would have cost $17 million.
But that's citywide, right?
No, just in these two zip codes.
Oh, really? Wow.
Just in these two zip codes. It would have taken $17 million to defend everybody. So I'm proposing.
Oh wait, Sarah, tell them also the cost of sheltering, of how much we spend on sheltering versus right to counsel.
It could be $3,000 a month for a shelter bed for all these people who could be displaced.
So all the people that are now homeless, that we're displacing and we're putting into shelters, we are now paying $3,000. So that's approximately $36,000 a year, where we could have solved the case for $7,500 a year and kept them in their home and not had to do this. If we had right to counsel, we would be spending right to counsel takes 20% of what we spend on housing the homeless and people who are being displaced and evicted. 20% of that budget would solve our issues in this district.
So my proposal is to up this to $3 million a year. I know it sounds crazy.
No, it's not
but it's
crazy
not.
at all.
It's not.
Is it or not? So don't like
So my proposal would be $3 million a year, right? Because this area was in the original right to counsel because they knew Atlantic Yards was incentivizing displacement here. Our neighborhood deserves special consideration, deserves special funding and broad-based funding, right? And additionally, this is a lot of money. There should be an advisory board overseeing. Now, they did this with the Atlantic Yards area. There should be an advisory board, and it should be made up of tenants. And Crown Heights Tenant Union is not a nonprofit. It's not incorporated, right? So it's not like we could bid for the proposals to do the tenant. We're already organizing in our neighborhood. We are tenants that live in this neighborhood. We defend each other all the time. So CHTU should be enabled to put forth members who could serve on this board. You guys are.
But what does the advisory board do?
So it could oversee the spending of this legal funding.
So I wanted to I just want to point out, you might not need that in this resolution or in this condition, because we've already set up an oversight board and members of CHTU, which we've already said, based on your recommendation, includes tenants.
Right, but
So we're kind of doing double duty on this. I don't think we need.
So but here's the thing.
I mean, I think we covered what you just asked for.
The resolution is clean. The resolution is clean, and we've already discussed having the oversight ability and the inclusion of tenants. Being so specific is self-defeating.
And I think setting up two different boards potentially that are doing the same thing is not such a great way to go. But I think upping the funding, the $3 million, sure.
Yeah.
Mimi?
I think this is something that I more wanted to say for HPD, but I guess we presented here. I have concerns in regards to, and I've expressed it in the email, organizations like Fifth Avenue Committee, Impact, etc. I've been doing this work for over 10 years. I've never had anyone come to me and say that Fifth Avenue has saved them in any way. That's not true. One tenant in 10 years has said that they found help through them. It is the groundwork tenant organizers that HPD has spoken about that actually do that type of work. My issue with Fifth Avenue and these other organizations is that they have been invited to advise, and then they're also getting the contract. I don't think it's just not ethical.
So maybe that's actually out of our, this is actually out of our hands, because this is something that HPD, they have someone, and that person subcontracts.
Right,
So
and that's what I
out of
want
our
to,
realm.
like, where do I bring this up, at what point? Because, I mean, it's self-dealing. If you guys can't see that it's self-dealing, I can't be on an advisory board and then award the contract to myself. I mean, it just,
But maybe that's not the case. Blackwood's development, Sarita, can you talk about the organization of?
But is that's not this though, that's not.
well, it does, because were they not on AMP, are they not on the AMP board?
No.
Wait, so they're not on the steering committee?
No, Mimi, this is your proposal.
Yeah, no, it is, exactly, and I'm asking you, when do I bring up this point? Because this, to me, is a part of the tenant protections, because at the end of the day, in order to administer this program, you're going to have to elect a CBO. So what I'm trying to say to you is that if you do a community-based organization, can we have some more say-so in it, because I have issues with these other ones that I've named.
But isn't that why you named these?
No, because the money doesn't just, you have to, there's a middle person in between that you're missing.
It sounds to me like this is like another amendment kind of issue that you want us to include, because it's about the CBOs getting money.
I don't know where to include it, exactly, that's why I'm asking.
But it's separate from the
when
tenant,
do we?
If I can finish the sentence, I'm saying it sounds like, you correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like it's actually an additional thing, maybe it's a 14th thing that you want to propose here, that is separate from this tenant protection piece. So let's pull it apart. If that's an additional thing and a 14th item to add, which is specific to how the CBOs are going to be selected for who would get funded, then let's word something as the 14th item here.
Okay. Then wherever I can bring it up, I'm happy.
This is good. We're adding the money. We're increasing the money to $3 million, and otherwise you like it.
Oh no, it's great.
Right? So, and I think no one else has had any objections to this.
Sorry, you had something.
Should we approve this?
So I just need, because it's not just about right to counsel cases, right? So maybe it could be to fund free representations to tenants in Community District 8 in affirmative and defensive cases.
Yeah, let's add that.
Right.
Okay, do you want right to counsel in there?
Yes.
Well, no, because it's got to be beyond right to counsel, right?
Affirmative.
Right to counsel is just too limited, right?
Defensive.
Yeah, affirmative and defensive,
And this is a
So you don't want the words under the right to counsel program?
correct, because it's too limited.
Okay, that's fine. All right.
Okay. Oh, and maybe you could include, like Legal Aid Society,
I thought that was.
Legal Services NYC has done a lot of work, like they do organizing plus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And your suggestion of Crown Heights Tenant Union, I think would be worthy.
But that's
Not
not
this.
legal.
Don't do that, we can't, because we're not a corporation.
Okay, is that right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
We're not a corporation.
Okay. Yes, but
We have a
second.
motion, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Okay. We're voting.
Just so y'all know, we're approaching my bedtime. Princess Ben James?
No.
Robert Callahan? Barbara Cofield? Peter Crashes?
Yes.
Nicole LeMay?
Yes.
Francis Langley?
Yes.
Sarah Lazar?
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell?
Yes.
Tracy Nottingham?
Yes.
Pia Ortiz?
Nora?
You say yes? Okay. Robert Puka?
Yes.
Jack Robinson?
Yes.
Connor Ross?
Yes.
Katie Taylor?
Yes.
Gil Baconi?
Yes.
Cheryl Walcott?
Yes.
Sharon Wedderburn, yes. Elaine Weinstein?
Yes.
The next one, I'm gonna give you a warning. The next one is a little bit of a doozy. It's not something we've talked about before, but I recently spoke with somebody who has a pretty deep background in affordable housing lotteries. And I think this was important enough to just try to introduce, even though the concept is kind of new. So probably everybody understands about affordable housing lotteries and how new affordable housing is placed out through the Housing Connect system. And at one point, there was a 50% preference for people in a given community district to get the units in their community district. Then along came something called the Gurian case that was recently settled in the spring by the Adams administration. It knocked it down to 20%, and then it's going to get knocked down further to 15%. So that's, for us, that's not great, right? We're doing a big neighborhood rezoning. There's going to be a lot of affordable housing coming out of it. Before, we would have gotten 50% of those units from people who live here in Community District 8, and now we don't get them, right? The point of that case was that there was segregationists trying to keep people in the same community districts and other people out. But since that case has been settled, it's also possible that new kinds of preferences can be created that can be more advantageous to people who potentially are at risk of displacement in this community. So we just talked about this idea of doing a very aggressive kind of program to help bring legal services and other kinds of representation to people who are at risk of displacement. There's an opportunity to take some of that, to use that as intake, create a registry of people who are experiencing displacement pressure in this community district, and have those people, if they are displaced later, receive preference for affordable housing that allows them to return to the district. And because that's not the same, that's a different set of criteria than was in Gurian, and potentially would survive a legal challenge. And this is like a kind of a radical thing, and I might be giving the folks from HPD heartburn by talking about this, but
you're already giving them heartburn.
This is just, this idea was discussed and cooked up with somebody who understood the subject well. And I would like us to consider the idea that as a function of this rezoning, HPD will actually establish a registry for tenants facing displacement pressure in the aamup study area. And should registered tenants be displaced, they shall receive preference for 50% of units of affordable housing created in any building developed as a consequence of the aamup rezoning, such units being separate from any units allocated to other preference classes that may exist at the time an affordable housing lottery takes place. So this wouldn't change anything about existing residents getting community preference or preference for the disabled or for for municipal employees, but it would add a new class of preference for people who are displaced from this neighborhood, who would then have a leg up in trying to get an affordable unit that came out of this rezoning and come back to Community District 8.
Tracy, Julia, then Princess.
Do you need to include language about funding this registry?
Well, it's the City of New York, so HPD will figure out how to pay for it. We're not looking for the city to fund someone else to do it, because HPD administers the lotteries. So they're gonna.
But they could underfund that section of it.
I know, but that's why we have the oversight, which is funded.
That's
why we have taxes.
Julia?
Could you then, if given this registry, could you then qualify like a number of times so that your number would go up? Let's say you were a disabled veteran who was displaced. Would your number be higher than someone who was just displaced?
That's a great question for HPD.
Okay, that's a lot of hypotheticals.
What would be me?
Yeah.
I'm a veteran, I'm disabled, I could be displaced. So, that's not so hypothetical, you looking at me.
Yeah, so maybe we can take those one step at a time. So for veterans, we don't have a preference for veterans right now in our housing lottery. But veterans are obviously eligible to apply and could qualify if you, for example, have like a housing voucher, could also qualify for our units that are part of the homeless set aside. For disability, we do have set asides for disability, so that is something where you would get preference there. And then as part of this new registry, yeah, I think you guys are creating this, so it would really be up to you to figure out how this would stack on to other preferences that might be factoring in.
Princess and then Connor.
Okay. Most veterans, I'm a mother of 2 veterans, one 26 years. I'm the co-chairperson board 8 veterans. I think veterans, as the young veterans, should be placed on that because most veterans are disabled. And I think because they serve the country, they give up their lives, they should be placed on the top of the run when it comes to people with disability to get housing. And my question is, can we, are we willing to trust HPD to do that for us, to keep tab of people who are displaced? Seeing that we know, because the last census, we were talking about how many people, 20-something thousand people were displaced from here.
Yes.
Can we keep tab of that?
No, we can't, but that's why we're creating a registry. And the registry will be made up of people who avail themselves of legal services or come through other intake channels, like let's say maybe, go to an Impact Brooklyn or go to some other, get services someplace where they can be documented as undergoing displacement pressure. Hopefully, their situation gets addressed through legal aid, caseworking, the like. If it doesn't, and they're displaced, they move to the top of the line to get an apartment back in the neighborhood.
Connor?
Is there a standard definition for like what constitutes displacement in this, or would this be something where like we put together kind of what would qualify as a displacement situation?
So let's say, your landlord is breathing down your neck, turning off your heat, removing the lock from the front, yada, yada, yada. And you seek out legal help through the program that is going to get funded through the last condition we just created. Now we know who you are, we know where you live, and we know you're having trouble. If you're not able to get things resolved with your landlord through legal assistance, you end up having to move to,
Bushwick, Quinn, Jersey.
Hoboken or something, wherever. But you're connected to this neighborhood and you want to come back.
Yes.
You can apply for affordable housing here, and because your name was captured at the time you went through intake.
Okay.
You move to the top of the list. That's one of the benefits of trying to do other kinds of tenant support as a function of this program. We learn who those tenants are. Because you're right, it would be very difficult to try to find all the people who've been displaced from Community District 8 over the last 10 years, but if they come through the door looking for help, we know that. We know who they are.
Sarah?
So I find this idea intriguing. So a lot of people who get displaced, it's like they might just their landlord might just say, I'm raising your rent 50%, and you might be in one of those units that's not covered by good cause for whatever reason, and a lot of those tenants are afraid to let the landlord, a lot of those tenants will just say, I can't afford that and move. I wonder if that kind of person, if they could maybe document, this is what I was paying, and this is the new rental rate that the landlord proposed me, and which caused me to not Or does
So a
the
lot of
tenant
that
have to
was
let
changed.
themselves go to court to qualify for this?
Not necessarily. There could be other intake channels too. They could go through. They don't have to actually hire a lawyer. Maybe they just,
Self-identify.
call for, like, help from an advocate or
Social services.
social services, something like that. Where this is. So it could be. I wasn't trying to define every possible channel, but I'm recognizing that we are asking for a fairly significant commitment for legal services and potentially reaching hundreds or thousands of people that way. And those people, if they're not able to be helped through legal services, might have another way back into the neighborhood by getting affordable housing that is going to follow the aamup design.
If this passed, how would tenants who are displaced find out about this?
So we'd have to, there'd have to be communications like, stuff like you see now with direct mail, with other kinds of stuff from the community boards, telling people that these services exist and making sure they know how to get registered.
And the council people that mail all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So, would be sending that.
That's right.
Yeah, in fact, the council members would actually be a great sort of intake source for the type of tenant that Sarah mentioned before.
Mimi,
I'd like to make a motion
go for it.
To second it.
to support this motion, to support this
Second.
proposal.
As written.
Good job.
Yeah, go.
I can't take
We
full
only had to
credit.
get to the
I
10th
did-
vote
I
to
did
get
have
to
some
this
help
stuff.
with this one.
Okay.
So far, this is the best one. I like this.
Princess?
Wonderful.
Yes.
Smart, very smart.
Barbara Cofield?
Yes.
Peter Precious?
Yes.
Nicola May?
Yes.
Francis Langley?
Yes.
Sarah Lazar?
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell?
Yes.
Tracy Nottingham?
Yep.
P. Ortiz? Robert Puka?
Yes.
Jack Robinson?
Yes.
Connor Ross?
Yes.
Katie Taylor? Yes. Brianna's gone. Gilbert Coney?
Oh, yes.
Cheryl Welcott?
Yes.
Sharon Wedderburn, yes. Elaine Weinstein?
Yes.
Oh, we have a unanimous vote. What a change.
Wow. Thank you. All right. So the remaining items here are actually they're not land use items, but they were suggested by people from the land use committee, and so since they would belong to the EST committee. But I thought we'd put them up anyway, and we can vote on them, and and then we can add them to the other things that come out of EST. So this is Rob Puka's slide. This relates to the 542 Dean Street building, and this calls for the Department of Transportation to create a no parking anytime zone in front of the building, because we want to make sure it stays clear for people being dropped off and picked up at that building.
I can explain why I said that. The 542 Dean building is 100% affordable senior citizens. So I live across the street from that. Right now, there's currently a curb cut there. There's a HPD parking lot. So I know that there is going to be accessorides, maybe ambulance, many things these seniors are going to need. So I just thought that to keep that space there for ambulance and for accessorides only would be a good idea. And since there's already an existing curb cut there, there's not really much that needs to be done. Just to put up DOT could put up said, a sign.
Yeah.
Cheryl?
Suppose I go shopping for my loved one and they live in a building and I need to park my car to bring in the groceries or whatever I bought for them.
Well, you can stop to unload. You just
Okay,
can't.
it says
no
unload.
parking, but you can't.
Okay.
You can't leave.
Okay.
You can't leave your car parked. If you left your car parked there, you'd risk a ticket.
Precious?
Just from experience, I mean, because in EST I suggested that in fact all buildings that have more than 100 units should have a standing zone in front of them. Doesn't make sense for that not to take place on the block that I live on. What's going to happen is if there's parking there, or, there's going to be a vehicle pulling up that's gonna be double parked, and that's gonna stop the traffic, or disrupt a bike lane, or do something like that. So all these, there are deliveries, there's all sorts of things that happen for these larger buildings, and they're happening all day, every day. So, especially if you had commercial on the bottom, or if you have a special need.
So in my periphery, I see someone wearing a DOT fleece. Would you look like you want to opine?
Yeah.
So introduce yourself first.
Hi, so my name is Emily Raquel. I'm the PD liaison for CD8, along with 2, 6, and 7 in Brooklyn, at the Commissioner's office. If I'm not mistaken, 542 is already an existing building, correct?
Yes. No, there's no building there now.
There's no building
It's a surface parking lot.
Oh, the parking lot, okay, so this is something that you can vote on, but that's something that we.
There is a building that will be built there.
Yeah.
It's already,
To
it's part of.
create the curb cut and allow, like, the.
No,
they go-
no curb cut, just no parking.
I get that, yes. So, the building has not been developed yet, though. No. So, once the building gets developed, the developer goes through a process, and they eventually have to do what's called a builder's pavement plan, which they have to pretty much give us the exact details of what the surrounding perimeter of their, building would look like, and the conditions, that they would like to see. That's where we work. That's where we can suggest that they include a curb cut. So you're able to vote on this, but I don't see the value.
Hey, Mr. Puka, Mr. Puka. Mr. Puka.
So that
Mr.
curb
Puka.
cut,
It's 10 o'clock.
that curb cut is not, that has,
Yeah.
so the curb cut is gonna be redeveloped, it's not gonna be there, so that's something that you have to work with the new developer with, so the surrounding parking spots.
Mr. Puka.
Told us to work with HPD, but I asked if.
Yeah, so-
HPD said, I'm not yet you personally, but I saw what HPD told me that DOT.
Mr. Puka.
I don't think we need to solve the problem.
Okay, yeah, we don't. Okay, thank you. Ma'am, but I am gonna ask you to sign in for us so we can follow up with you. There's a sheet.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Weinstein?
Just quickly, I thought I remembered 2 meetings ago, the developers came and presented their design on the building.
And even more importantly, Jogo Development Corp. had a
here.
conversation with
Do you
them.
remember in that presentation, did she I can't remember, did she describe a drive-through?
One of the
or
things they
curb
talked
cut?
about was a circular
She did not
drive,
at all.
but she did not describe it, and as we were just told, there will be a builder's pavement plan.
Right.
So we can express that this be included
They
as
said they were
part
gonna
of the
come
builder's
back, so
pavement
we
plan.
should.
But it's really unlikely that they're gonna wanna build a driveway into that building. And nor do I think that would be a good idea, because you really don't want cars crossing over the sidewalk, especially.
Not a senior building.
Especially in front of the senior building.
So simple. I would entertain a motion.
Yeah, just whatever. Let's go.
Whatever. No. You can't be whatever. Connor has made a motion to support. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. I'm going to take the vote. Princess Ben James. Yes. Barbara Cofield. Peter Crashes.
Yes.
Nicole LeMay.
Yes.
Francis Langley.
Yes.
Sarah Lazore.
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell.
Yes.
Tracy Nottingham.
Yes.
Fiora Ortiz. Robert Puka.
Yes.
Jack Robinson.
Yes.
Connor Ross.
Yes.
Katie Taylor.
Yes.
Gib Baconi.
Yes.
Cheryl Walcott.
Yes.
Sharon Wedderburn, yes. Elaine Weinstein.
Yes.
Okay, we have a unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Second one.
So the next one, there's only 2 more left, and if you like that last one, I think you're really gonna like this one. This one I can't take credit for. This was suggested by somebody else who I can't name, but let's see what you think. This one calls for the Department of Transportation to install metal bollards in the sidewalk at the curb along the Dean Playground frontages on Dean Street and Bergen Street. Does anybody know what the bollards are for?
No.
They're there to prevent combat parking.
Oh.
How cute. It's the fire department will freak out.
It means NYPD and FDNY parking on the sidewalk.
It's really FDNY that's doing that, for sure.
On Dean.
On Dean.
Are you talking about on Dean and Burry?
I'm talking about the frontages of the playground, having bollards at the curb to prevent people from pulling up onto the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So the sidewalk can stay clear in front of the playground, on both sides of the playground.
Does that take away the already narrow?
And what about the
No, it would actually enable the parking.
But if the
private-
bollards,
What about the parallel parking on Bergen?
You can still parallel park in front of this, you just
I'm
can't.
sorry, not parallel, combat. What about the combat? You including that?
I included Bergen and Dean.
Okay.
Both sides of the park, so you're not gonna be obstructed in front of the park.
Got it.
If you're walking past the park on the sidewalk.
But then if they can park where they custom park, now that says no. Other parks where private people were parking, they're gonna occupy that park, so it's gonna become a parking.
They already have 25 spaces at 535 Carlton that was given to the police as part of Atlantic Yards, and they don't. But this might encourage them to use that
Oh,
space.
so what you're saying, they don't utilize it?
so here's my question, who's gonna enforce this?
It's a bollard.
But they can ride up on the sidewalk.
It's self-enforcing.
I guess it depends on the placement of the bollard.
It's gonna be next to the curb.
Mr. Puka.
Again, just so everybody knows, I live on, who doesn't know this block, Dean Street right now and Bergen Street are bus routes, they're bike lanes, they're also bike lanes, and the firemen park, combat parking, they park on the sidewalk in front of the playground, the children's playground actually, and on Bergen Street, the police combat park, and they park on the sidewalk. So if you're walking in a baby carriage, or if you're elderly and you have a walker, there's trees on Bergen Street and there's trees on Dean Street, so basically you cannot get by.
Unless you go into the street. Oh, yeah, okay.
The bollards is a great idea, I don't know who
Yeah,
thought of
I
it,
think that's
but
great.
it's a great idea.
I make a motion.
Second.
This is second? Is that me? Boom, boom. All right, we're gonna call, any more discussion?
No.
We're calling a vote. Princess Ben James. Princess Ben James, wait, Princess Ben James.
Yes.
Barbara Cofield. Yes. Peter Crassus.
Yes.
Nicola May.
Yes.
Francis Langley.
Yes.
Dr. Sarah Lazore.
Yes.
Mimi Mitchell.
Yes.
Tracy Nottingham.
Yes.
Fiora Ortiz.
Supposedly it won't take away public parking, whatever, but private cars, yes.
Barbara Puka.
Yes.
Jack Robinson.
Yes. It is.
Connor Ross.
Yes.
What do you think? Yeah, of course it will.
Katie Taylor. Yes.
They're not
Gib
gonna do it
Piconi.
anyway.
Yes.
Cheryl Walcott.
They're not gonna do it anyway.
Sharon Wedderburn, yes. Elaine Weinstein.
Yes.
Woo, we got another unanimous, unanimous
Yeah, I'm gonna
vote.
get their saw.
All right, you guys made it
Good
this
luck
far.
with
There's
that.
only one of these left.
And the one that Mimi wants to add.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last one is an open space item. Department of Parks will install new AstroTurf and upgraded play equipment at the Dean Playground.
What one is Dean Playground?
Well, because it was asked for, somebody suggested this should be on the list. That might be Rob over there.
So I'll explain to you again, because the two new HPD buildings, the one on 542 Dean is being built right next to the Dean Street Playground. 516 Bergen is being built right across the street from the Dean Street Playground. So there's going to be a major impact. There's already a school just opened up on the corner of Dean Street and 6th Avenue. So the Dean Street Playground is right now overused and will continue to receive direct impact. So that's why I was hoping that the developers could be actually responsible for paying for the upgrades, but we didn't feel that way.
No, this is the city should pay for it.
Absolutely.
It's not a.
So so we have a motion and it's been seconded. Any more questions?
Yeah, well, yeah, I do, actually.
Okay.
I was gonna say it was also seemingly ignored in all the other, aamup program upgrades theme wasn't added into this, so, but, can we talk about different ages of upgraded play equipment?
I'm not sure what do you mean by that?
In other words, if you have a swing, you don't just want baby swings, you want big kid swings too?
I have to confess, I'm not that familiar with what exactly is the playground, but I think probably some other people here are.
Well, I'm just saying it's
Precious, are you opining about the swings? Or yes?
Yeah, actually, I can address that directly because I was very involved in raising private money to upgrade the playground initially. And the one thing that wasn't upgraded was the children's playground. So I hope there will be a focus on that. Swings are always, especially because of the confined space there, swings are something the Parks Department would have liked to remove a long time ago because it takes up a huge amount of space. For safety reasons, and there are other ways you can get more kids in the playground if you remove the swing. So I would leave it to the Parks Department, who has expertise, to upgrade it. But I would say even more, instead of upgrade, I would just say a new children's playground. Install new AstroTurf and a new children's playground.
Can we say an environmentally safe playground, because the metal equipment that they're using now that's getting hotter and hotter, the kids won't be able to sit on the metal.
Well, the new equipment that's out protects them more.
The new domes have protection now?
Yeah, they do. I agree with Peter that if you remove those swings, which occupy a huge amount, you could have play equipment for the younger kids as well as play equipment for the older kids.
The Parks
Two
Department.
separate ones, but the Parks Department are really expert in this.
Yeah, and then when you come to the
So
community
can
board.
we just leave up because this is so, something that can be decided and discussed in the future, so we can vote on this?
Yes.
So can you repeat the motion, please? Nobody
rewriting it.
Oh, I just wanted to.
Could you just read it again, Department?
I think metal equipment is deemed safe, but because we're getting hotter and hotter, the metal isn't appropriate for us anymore. So they need to look at a warmer climate and see what equipment they use.
How about heat safe
Heat
equipment?
resistant, yes.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you.
So move to approve this.
Second. Who's the second, Katie?
Just to get 1 second in there.
We're
fast.
We have one more after this, right?
Not for me, you don't.
No, well, there was one from before.
Okay.
Okay, so, hold on 1 second. Princess Ben James.
Yes.
Barbara Cofield.
Yes.
Peter Crashes.
Yes.
Nicole May.
Yes.
Francis Langley.
Yes.
Sarah Lazor.
Yep.
Mimi Mitchell.
Yes.
Tracy Nottingham.
Yes.
Fiora Tees. Robert Pukas.
Yes.
Jack Robinson.
Yes.
Connor Ross.
Yes.
Katie Taylor.
Yes.
Gil Baconi.
Yes.
Cheryl Wolcott.
Yes.
Sharon Wedderburn, yes. Elaine Weinstein.
Yes.
Okay, another unanimous vote.
Wait, hang on. We still had one more that maybe
I
you want to
just,
add,
no,
right?
I just said this is I'm announcing the vote. Hold on, hold on,
It
hold
could
on,
be a
hold
pause,
on.
made people think they were done. I just wanted to.
I think we're done.
Almost done. Almost so close.
A new one?
So close.
Okay, Mimi?
Yes, okay, so the motion would be, that we get pre-approval of the CBO.
Yeah.
Shows, how about that, is that?
But I don't think we've actually passed any conditions that require a CBO.
Okay, then how about if any CBOs are used? Then we just do that.
But, okay, so who will approve?
Well, actually, the plan as written calls for funding for CBOs. And I think that's the thing you were reacting to.
That's
how those.
one of the parts.
Okay.
The HPD has already established who is the organ for the tenant.
But have they
Just to
already
read-
proposed?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think we're talking about a few different things, and I know we're all trying to get out of here. So for the Partners in Preservation Program, there are CBOs for that connect, that really work closely with specific buildings and tenants in specific buildings to build tenant organizers there and connect them to legal services and other government agencies that they may need. What you all are talking about is something separate
that I think lives more, not with HPD, but probably with the Office of Civil Justice, that funds the right to counsel and the anti-harassment tenant protection program, which is what I was talking about earlier. So earlier, when I mentioned the funding for the anti-harassment tenant protection program, HPD doesn't administer that. That's administered by the Office of Civil Justice, and they work with legal service providers. There are no CBOs involved in that.
Okay. So then, are you saying that then I don't need this, correct?
No,
Like-
not unless you're talking about more funding for the Partners in Preservation program specifically, but it sounds like.
No, I
you're
wasn't,
talking
but
about-
I will attack that one later. Sorry,
No, that's
sorry.
okay. No need to do that. I think what you're saying is like, let's fund
Yeah.
these existing legal services programs.
And no,
CBOs are
and no
strong.
self-dealing on CBOs.
No, we
That's
work
all.
together.
Yeah,
Work
you know,
together.
that's all I'm asking
It's
for.
a housing ecosystem that is strengthened with each piece being fully funded, so, great.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
all
no,
for indulging me with that.
I think the answer is
Appreciate it.
yes. I mean, we obviously are gonna send the completed list of conditions out.
And just
Be no
quickly, CDL
self-dealing
stands for community benefits.
anywhere on the steering committee.
Sorry, like what she was talking about, the admin committee. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we've just agreed that this is something that we're not going to do as a motion, we're not doing it here and now?
Right.
Okay. So here's what I'd like to entertain, a motion to adjourn.
I am so sorry. So these are all conditions, but did we ever have a vote on the overall yes
No.
or no for the rezoning?
No, that happens next Thursday.
That'll be at the general meeting.
Okay.
And the reason why we're spending so much time doing this now is so it doesn't happen at the general meeting.
Let's hope.
We want to take some things off the table.
All right, folks, it's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. See you at Dean Street Playground.
Yes, but do you anyone really
As a matter of fact, as part of everything.
No.
So,
we have to include.
I mean, really, we can barely listen to it.
compared to